and Kyle Busch, who crashed in his qualifying run Saturday. Kyle will have to start at the tail end of the field. All eyes are at the playoff cutoff line with 7 races to go in the regular season. Bubba Wallace, who is out by 3, will start 8th. A.J. Allmendinger, who is out by 13, will start 14th. And Chase Elliott, who is trying to get playoff qualified, he'll start in the 18th position. I'm Mike Bagley. This has been the Monday Morning Race Recap on the Motor Racing Network.
Electric scooters are fun, easy to use, and seemingly all over the streets. But several new studies find that e-scooters are also causing a growing number of serious injuries. One study by the CDC shows that 45% of those hurt have head injuries, while another 27% have broken arms, wrists, or hands. Half of those hurt say a pothole or a crack in the street caused their crash. Dr. Vidor Friedman is president of the American College of Emergency Physicians.
Emergency physicians are treating an increasing number of scooter-related injuries. Many of these are serious and can be life-changing, but many of these injuries are avoidable. The number one thing you can do to avoid serious injury is to wear a helmet. Scoot safe and avoid an emergency.
Studies show that about a third of those hurt are first-time scooter riders. Dr. Friedman advises to start slowly, follow the rules of the road, and be an alert rider. More safety tips are online at emergencycareforyou.org/scootsafe.
You're home to the NFL. WGSX Lynn Haven. WVLQ Port St. Joe. ESPN Northwest Florida.
Are you ready? Okay, let's begin.
Trip. The Afternoon Underdog Trip. Live and local. Inside the doghouse.
Unleash the dragon.
On the Sports Talk Monster. ESPN Northwest Florida.
Well, what's going on, Northwest Florida? You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs, and you're tuned into ESPN Northwest Florida, 104.3 right here in Panama City, and 101.9, the Forgotten Coast of Port St. Joe area. 104.3 PC, 101.9 in Port St. Joe. I'm David Hayes along with Tyler Bishop. And we're the Afternoon Underdogs, and as always on Tuesdays, it's going to be a plethora of college football this afternoon, and we're going to dive into our Big 12 predictions or projections, if you will. That'll be at the top of hour number 2. Tyler, I don't know if you're going to believe this, but I've actually already went through and done all of my predictions.
Makes it a little bit easier. You're not having to sit there and decide in the moment. Gives you a little bit
especially with this conference, because you start looking at it and you're just like, oh man, they could almost, in a sense, cannibalize themselves. And it's the last year for the Big 12 to have Oklahoma and Texas. And I do have to say that I surprised myself with one of those schools' records moving down the line. We're also going to have to revert back quickly to the Pac-12 at some point in time today, because I don't think that either one of us ended up picking the eventual champion, Pac-12 champion, soon to be known as the Pac-4. Which, I mean, has this? I don't want to say that it's caught you off guard or that it's caught me off guard, because we knew that it's been coming, but that it's ramped up. Like you have USC, UCLA going to the Big 10. You've got Oklahoma and Texas. And it's like, all right, like Colorado going to the Big 12. But how much more can actually happen like this quickly? And then your guy Dan Lanning just kind of helped take down college football. Not college football, but helped take down the Pac-12 conference.
Yeah, I think kind of once we saw that news come across last week with Washington and Oregon, it's like, all right, this is done. It's just how fast is it crumbling now? Because I think we kind of all knew once USC and UCLA left, there wasn't enough big powers out west to really kind of sustain that conference in the long term, especially compared to what the SEC and Big Ten have built. And I think we saw that happen once Oregon left. And I kind of said in one of our group chats, I was like, man, Big 12 was a big winner of that day because they were able to snag Arizona State, Utah, and kind of further cement themselves as a feasible conference moving forward. They don't have a true top-tier team. I think you can claim the ACC does this year with Clemson and Florida State, and even historically teams like Miami and Virginia Tech. I'm not sure there's anybody in the Big 12 on that level. But I mean, it's a fairly deep conference, and it could be a very fun conference to watch going forward, because you're going to have, I mean, just by the sheer volume, you're going to have a few good teams every year, and it's going to change every year, because none of these teams are traditional, like, recruiting powerhouses, you know, guys who sign tons of 4 and 5-star guys. So it's going to be who can develop that roster and who can maintain their guys year over year. Especially those 4 new teams, which I find to be very intriguing, with Cincinnati, with UCF, with BYU and Houston, and seeing how they're going to adapt here in year 1, but then in year 2 of them being in the Big 12, it is going to be Oklahoma list and Texas list there, which gives, I say that I think that it creates a little bit more of an even playing field. So it'll be interesting to see. And then also, do teams like Baylor and Texas Tech and Oklahoma State take an extra step, or take that next step to kind of become that powerhouse of the conference? And you're right. I mean, the ACC, as bad as their deal is that's in place right now, is in good position, at least looking right here at 2023 with Florida State and Clemson. However, those are the 2 teams that want to leave the conference, and so we'll have to see how all of that plays out. But yeah, I would have never guessed that once we heard, especially when we heard the 4 teams possibly going to the Big Ten. I forget who came up with that rumor, but Florida State, Clemson, Oregon, and Washington. I was like, all right, I don't think, because I know Florida State cannot join the Big Ten as of right now, just because of not having that AAU designation. But I mean, Nebraska had it when they first got into the conference, and they're not an AAU school right now. They're the only team in the Big Ten who isn't. So I mean, that's the only thing that you got to have, or you just got to have it to get in, and then after that, it's essentially. Once you're in the club, they're not going to ID you again, right? Yeah. What do you think the SEC does, though? Do you think? And I'm glad that we're talking about this now, because otherwise we would have had to try to scramble in hour number 2 to dive into this. But what do you think the SEC is going to do now? Like, do they answer and try to go get, maybe the equivalent of Oregon and Washington, even though looking at that or trying to perceive who that Oregon and Washington is, it's either Florida State and Clemson, or like, I don't think that there's anyone necessarily as prestigious as those schools. I might be eliminating someone, but does the SEC sit back and watch how this plays out, or do they get active again? Everything I've read, it seems like they're kind of holding steady for now. From what Greg Sankey has said, the commissioner of the SEC, is that he's interested in having the best conference, not the biggest. Yeah. Right now, you've just got so many historical schools. You got Bama, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, even schools like Ole Miss, Mississippi State. A lot of these schools have some great tradition and some great history when it comes to college athletics. Basically, almost every team in the SEC does, in one sport or another. They don't have to necessarily go and grab anybody. I think the best expansion I've kind of heard in twofold is Virginia Tech and North Carolina to expand in different markets, and then also grabbing Florida State and Clemson to kind of lock down the Southeast. Keeping it where the Southeastern Conference rules the Southeast. The Big Ten can have and the Big 12 can have the rest of the country type deal. Yeah. and that makes sense in a lot of ways to kind of just basically they're ensuring that they're always the number 1 football conference. If you have Clemson and Florida State to what they already have, that just guarantees that going forward. But I think but obviously all those are ACC teams with the whole grant of rights thing. Until there's a legitimate, feasible option to getting those teams out, I think the SEC just kind of holds on, waits to see what happens there, and goes forward, because they don't necessarily need to add anybody right now. They're quality over quantity. There's 12 teams in the college football playoff, so the more that you're adding to your conference, the more that even if it's top tier schools, the more you're watering it down. And we're really going to see how this affects everything, not in next year, not the year. I mean, it's going to take 3 or 4 years, a couple of recruiting cycles to really see how this plays out. And then also is the travel. We were talking a little bit about this on the Inside Drive, but does the travel that some of those athletes in the Big Ten are going to have to deal with, does that in the long run give the SEC, give the ACC, give the Big 12 a little bit of a leg up, because it's not as strenuous when you're talking about that? And I'm not just talking football players. I'm talking every single collegiate sport out there. Yeah, you've seen Lane Kiffin, actually, as far as like Power 5 head coach, been really outgoing on Twitter about the well-being of student athletes, and not just football, kind of like you said, but all student athletes, the wear and tear, the extra traveling now they're going to have to do. I saw specifically today a few Oregon women's softball players. Like, I signed with Oregon so I could stay local. My parents could come see most of my games up and down the West Coast, but now I got to go play like in East Rutherford, New Jersey for my senior year. My parents aren't going to make that trip. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, and I think that's what gets lost in all the football talk, is the other sports and why some of these kids in some of these other sports go to the schools they do. Some of it so their family can see them, some of it so they can stay home. Where the attention and the notoriety is not there. It's like those sports still matter.
Right.
I mean, obviously they don't bring in the money that football does, and that's why football drives everything. But their opinions and their feelings matter. So that's kind of the hidden message that people lose in all this. And like the expansion stuff is fun. Like for us as football fans, like, oh man, a conference of these teams is great. But when you think about kind of how the sausage is made, it's like, man, there are people getting the raw end of the deal, and especially universities like Oregon State and Washington State right now that are left just kind of hanging in there. It's like, what are they doing?
And like an Oregon State team, which we've talked about them.
I've got them going 10-2, baby. Like Beaver believer this year, so that's tough.
They go 10-3 last year. Now, I mean, for 2023, not the biggest of issues, but it seems like if you're not, making something happen now, then you're going to be in the Pac-4. Like you're going to be in a conference with 4 teams next year. And guess what? What else starts next year? Yes, of course, the Big Ten expansion and the SEC expansion, but the 12-team college football playoff starts next year.
Yeah, and ironically, like the Pac-12 is shaped up to have one of their best years in a while this year, and it's going to be their last year.
Yeah,
it's just kind of funny how that works out.
You got Dion there, you've got USC with Caleb Williams, and all of the success that they've kind of been building on. Oregon, Washington with Michael Penix over there, and Oregon State as well. I mean, that's 4, 5, 6 teams over there, I think, that can make some noise. Now, how far they get, do they get into the top 4 teams at the end of the year? Who knows how that's going to work out? But man, and like you mentioned, as a football fan, like just seeing all of the possibilities is like, yeah, it's really cool. So let me ask you this. Do you think that we could get 5 years down the road? Let's just say 3 years. All right, 3 years down the road, and they're realizing that it's not working because it's more of a negative situation for the total of student athletes, not just the 100 guys that are playing football, and revert course to where, all right, where you're at in your football conference is where you're going to stay. But for the other sports, whoever was on with Carlin was talking about that, not posing it how I'm posing it. That's how it should have been done. I think we can all look back on this now. Even we haven't even played any games, but been like, yeah, this should have been a football only thing. But then I guess you can get into the argument of, okay, well, if it's a football only thing, then the only thing that's going to happen with this football money is going to go right back into the football boat and not to our Pac-12 counterparts or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's where that kind of gets muddled. Is if it's a football only move, like why does all the athletic department get all this money that's coming in? And it would suck because like rivalries between schools get formed across all platforms. It's not just you're not just a rival in football. You're not just a rival because you're football rivals.
Yeah.
Kansas and Kansas State hate each other. It doesn't matter if they're playing women's lacrosse, rowing, skiing. I don't even know if they have half these sports. But they hate each other no matter what. Like Kansas and Missouri, Georgia, Florida, Georgia Tech. I'm saying? All these schools hate each other. They want to beat each other in anything. So we're rivals in this sport, but not another. I think it would just kind of diminish from some of that, and that's what college sports about. Is it's the rivalry, it's the fanfare of it all, and it's kind of a messy situation. We've seen this coming, kind of like you said, for a while, but like now that it's finally here, it's like, man, there are a lot of issues that are coming up, and it's like, how is it going to affect the sport going forward?
And if we're thinking of things like this, if we're thinking about things like this, how are the powers that be not, you know what I mean? Because I feel like to make some of these drastic moves that we're making, and of course all of us wanted these, and now that we're seeing it, it's just like, what's going to happen when this happens, or whatever. I just, man, it is wild that it's upon us, and this is our final year of what we knew, and how it looks in 2024 is going to be totally different.
Well, it's like the Big Ten and the USC and UCLA brass, like those guys, were they not thinking about this? Because obviously, like Washington, Oregon, Arizona State, they're just trying to survive at this point. Like they're not doing anything malicious, but it's like, at a certain point, and even you could even say the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma making that first move maybe prompted a lot of this as well. So it's like, those are the moves that made a difference. Like that happened a year and a half, 2 years ago. People have already kind of like just accepted and forgot about. Like Arizona leaving is not because they're greedy. They're just trying to hold on at this point.
What else can they do?
They're just trying to survive and get off the sinking ship, which is, you can't blame them for. But so much of it's been put in motion already. There's no going back. And it's, I think eventually I've kind of said that I think we get to the point where the Big Ten and the SEC become like 40 teams, 35 teams on each side. They break up into more regional divisions, and then it kind of becomes like the AFC, NFC style.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like Florida State's going to end up playing 10 former ACC teams. Georgia and the SEC is going to basically stay the same. And I think we could see some very regional divisions of these super conferences at that point. I don't know how many teams it ends up being. I don't know how far down the road it is, but I think that's eventually where we will get to. But obviously it's going to be a bumpy ride when we get there.
Oh, no, 100%. But I feel like the majority of college football fans, where we're at in this day and age, would rather see you getting into the playoffs on more than just your brand name, more than just your end of the year speech, more than just your undefeated record without, a tough strength of schedule. Like, give us the divisions and such like that to actually have a better determining factor on who's where they should be and why.
Yeah.
And it's, when you're trying to pick 4 out of what is it, 131?
Yeah, something like that. Granted,
how
50
many
or
of
60
those
of them aren't in the conversation, which is why I'm not against necessarily a break, because I've said it before on the show, like UMass and Alabama shouldn't be competing for the same national championship.
Right.
It's just not fair to UMass.
Right.
So that's why I think the division could be good for some of these lower schools to actually play for a championship of some kind, because they're never going to play for one in its current standing. And that's it's just factual. Like, it sucks for them, but they start every year knowing there's zero chance they're making it to the college football playoff.
Yeah. Even a team like TCU who made it there before the season starts, no one's putting them there. It took until the final game of the season to be like, oh, there's a chance TCU could actually make this.
Yeah, people were arguing at 12-0 they may not make it. Like, there's still people out there trying to make that, like, a 10-2 Bama should jump them for some reason. Like,
and that's not the team that it should have been anyways. If they that's an old argument. Yeah. I'm not even trying to get into it because it is what it is. I think, and especially with the way that Ohio State played Georgia in that game, I feel like the right decision was made. Had it been Alabama and Georgia, it could have been ugly, and then you might not be seeing Alabama right now number coming into the season at number 3 in the coaches preseason poll, which I don't think anyone puts any real stock into these, but it is a nice guideline for how the season should start, because without these preseason polls, and this is just the coaches, we still got to get to the AP. But without these preseason polls, then, some of the games that are going to be happening in week 0 and week 1 is like, all right, that's it. I'd like to see those team plays, but then all of a sudden you put a little number to the left of their name, and it's like, oh, this is
all about ratings and TV.
Exactly.
It's funny that you're looking at the coaches poll, and it's like I get to like 6 or 7 or 8, whatever it was. And I was like, is this team really number 7? It's like, well, I definitely wouldn't put, like, I'm not saying this team should definitely be in front of me. So you get to a log jam there shortly after the first 6 or 7. It's like, oh, well, you could put the next 6 or 7 teams in a hat, shake them up, and pull them out, and I wouldn't have necessarily disagreed either way.
To be honest with you, especially because I don't put much weight into this, so it's not bothersome at all. I don't have really any issues. Georgia, the only thing I would do is, the only thing I could make the argument for, at least in the top 10, is just with all the players that Michigan is bringing in, maybe that. But because of back-to-back titles, no, I'm cool with Georgia being there, but I do think that Michigan's better than, at least on paper right now, Alabama and Ohio State. Then Alabama, Ohio State, I could care less like which direction that they put those. You could put Alabama at 4. I'd be fine with that. You could put LSU ahead of Alabama at this point in time, and it really is what it is. I'm cool with USC being there at 6. Penn State 7 is one of those things that they're kind of like LSU, where they get a little overshadowed by by Ohio State and Michigan. So it's I don't have an issue there. It is I think that Florida State had the better offseason, the better transfer portal than what Clemson did. But Clemson, has the most recent win, which I know
they get them at home this year, which which shouldn't really come into play, but it does a little bit, I think.
Yeah. So. No, that's what I'm saying.
Once you're going to get to that Penn State, Florida State area, there's a 5 or 6 group of teams. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it, however you ranked them at that point.
What about Notre Dame, though? Let's talk about some teams that could be too high. Is Notre Dame too high, or is it just that national brand? They're sitting at 13. They're behind Texas, ahead of Utah.
They got Sam Hartman coming in from Wake Forest.
That's true.
But new offensive coordinator this year. Marcus Freeman had a really up and down year last year as a head coach. They struggled early against some bad teams. But this is kind of that second year where we've seen coaches in the past make a big jump if they're going to be that guy. We kind of saw it with Heupel in Tennessee last year. We saw it with Kirby his second year. We've seen it with Urban Meyer, Nick Saban. Coaches throughout the years, good to great coaches are going to make a jump that second year. And it's still Notre Dame. It's still a power. There's still I'm not going to say power, but there's still a brand name. So they're going to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes 100%. To a lot of that stuff. But And without looking at their schedule right offhand, I do know they play USC.
Oh, no, you can look at the schedule.
I can look at a couple of the teams, but I mean they've got probably a couple marquee games they can kind of make a splash. They do play Ohio State again this year.
Ohio State plays again.
No, Notre Dame plays.
Oh, Notre Dame.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Notre Dame plays Ohio State and USC this year, so that's going to be two huge games for them to really either establish themselves or prove they don't belong.
Or fall back.
Yeah. So I mean, Notre Dame I think will be a team that plays enough power teams that they'll be able to either prove it or they'll get bounced.
I love TCU and Kansas State being back-to-back there. TCU at 16, Kansas State at 17. Oregon State, I think that they're well deserving of the love that they're getting here at 18. Oklahoma, now again, my prediction for them is not just how bad they were last year. I don't know if you can just start them off in the top 25 this year.
They're getting that brand recognition.
No, yeah.
And they took a loss off the schedule and haven't played Georgia this year.
Yeah. Wisconsin at 21. That's another one that's this is
that's
brand
a mixture
new
coach. Of recent success they've kind of had, and Luke Fickell's success at Cincinnati, I think combined kind of gave them some benefit of the doubt.
Which I'm okay with, but it's like one of those things. I love seeing Tulane at 23 just because I don't even care what they're bringing back for the season that they had last year.
They earned it in that Cotton Bowl. They earned a top 25 preseason.
Exactly. Texas Tech, I must be missing something. And again, I haven't done a lot of studying, but if I'm looking over here at what I got Texas.
I've heard some decent offseason hype for Texas Tech. It's kind of a dark horse in the Big 12. I did not give them that love when I did my picks here. There's one team, I don't know if I think I told you last week I was going through and doing this, and there's one team I ended up man, we got a potential playoff dark horse right here coming out of the Big 12 if I can It's going to be interesting if it plays out the way I've got it playing out, which probably won't. But,
I mean, it's so hard to peg them right here, and because we're picking games in week 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 12, 13, and 14, and you just never know how the team's actually going to be performing and what the injuries are looking at. And then last but not least, Texas A&M at 25, they'll keep on doing that. It's almost like getting to that Notre Dame type level with Texas A&M.
Between Jimbo and the talent they signed 2 years ago and everything, and now the hype of Bobby Petrino coming in. If Jimbo lets Bobby Petrino call plays, that could be a 9 to 10 win team this year, honestly.
Bobby addressed that today in his press conference, and he said, you know what, there's really not there's not such a thing in the way they're going to do things as play calling.
Yeah.
He said, we are going to, the week of practice, decide what plays we're going to run in certain situations. He said, and that it's already scripted out.
Yeah.
Before the game even starts. We know what plays we're going to run. So he said, I don't know why that's such a big deal. He goes, I'm the assistant coach. Jimbo Fisher's the head coach. He's the boss. I try to please him. He said, when I was a head coach, I tried to please the AD and the president of the university. They were my bosses. Jimbo's, this is his team, and I'm an assistant to do whatever he wants. Then they asked him if he was going to be on the sidelines or in the press box. And he said more than likely he was leaning towards the press box, but he said, depending on how the quarterbacks do, that'll make the determination of where he is. So,
and the media wants to, they're already ready to have those guys fighting, if you will, Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher.
Bobby Petrino's just going to cut to the chase. I mean, he's not going to, Jimbo was a little goofy in his whole, we're working through it. Just say it.
Yeah, if Jimbo came out and said what you said Bobby Petrino just said, I think it would have been dropped 3 months ago. But it's the fact that Jimbo's kind of been tap dancing around the question. It's instead of just answering it, he did, and that's the way most schools work. But there's an art to play calling, and somebody is going to be calling the plays. Just because you have play calls for certain situations, you still got to call the right ones.
You do.
And so there is an art to it, and so it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be it's either going to be an awesome partnership that's going to make waves in the SEC, or it's going to be a disaster.
I don't think it's going to be a disaster at all.
We'll see, though. You never know what happens with that Texas A&M and those rosters. We've got a little blast at Bay Point action about an hour and 20 minutes away from that. We're going to be playing some high-low with you guys at 5:40. You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. This is ESPN Northwest Florida. Up next, it's going to be your Minute with Max.
104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida could bring sports fans like you an app this powerful. The sports content you crave is always on. Live stream us everywhere you go. Now with upgraded programming and live game schedules, you'll always know when the Atlanta Braves and your favorite games are playing. Plus, interact with our local hosts in real time and so much more. The new app for the sports fanatic is available at the Apple Store and Google Play. From 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
This is Joanna with with your latest forecast on ESPN Northwest Florida this Tuesday. The rest of the day, a mixture of some sun and a possibility of thunderstorms, and 90 with a moderate breeze around 14 miles per hour out of the west-southwest. Tonight, partly cloudy skies with lows around 83. Tomorrow, partly sunny and a chance of thunderstorms and a temperature near 90. This forecast is brought to you by Earthworks of Northwest Florida. Thank you for keeping that dial at ESPN Northwest Florida. Rely on it.
Golf is a game that should be fun, but to have the most fun, you need to play your best. That's where the experts at Golf Plus come in. Their friendly staff will guide you through the buying process, answer all your questions, and can help with any repairs you need along the way. Golf Plus is your custom fitting, club repair, and golf retail shop. Golf Plus staff is non-commissioned and will work with you to find the best product for your game, just like they've been doing since 1988. Golf Plus in Dothan and Panama City Beach. Fitting, repair, retail. That's Golf Plus.
Los Rancheros has been doing it right for 20 years. Los Rancheros brings a top-shelf dining experience to you with the opening of their beautiful new building. Watch all college and pro games on Los Rancheros' 14 large-screen TVs with great drink specials daily from 2 to 5 and during all the games. Los Rancheros, the place for live sports and great food on 23rd Street between Jenks and Harrison.
He likes to idle his Kia while eating almonds and listening to Linkin Park in the Walgreens parking lot.
White people love trail mix.
David Hayes is part of the Afternoon Underdogs.
Oh, they love it. Love it. Eat it every day.
ESPN Northwest Florida.
They love it.
Welcome back. It's the Afternoon Underdogs on ESPN Northwest Florida, 104.3 here in Panama City, 101.9 in Port St. Joe. I'm David Hayes along with Tyler Bishop. And if you're a fantasy footballer out there, we've got your opportunity to play with all of us here at ESPN Northwest Florida. I've got 5 spots left. If you're available for the live draft August 26th, 11 a.m. out there at Dave & Buster's, then just text your name and your email to 850-215-6290. Your name and your email to 850-215-6290. You can also give us calls. But now it's time for your Minute with Max. Max, what's going on all the way from Wisconsin?
Oh, yeah. What's up, boys? Just bagging some bucks and drinking some brews up here. How are you guys doing?
There you go, man.
Got a late night at the Bear last night.
Oh, there you go, man. A little family time for your vacation.
Yeah, man, it's been good to be up here. Only downside is I'm near a lot of Packers fans, but I'm on the northwest side of the state, so I'm more on a Vikings lake, I would say.
Does it not feel like 115 degrees up there? Because if so, you're winning at this point.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. It's a quote unquote hot day today. It hit 80, so.
Oh wow, let's go. If you could bottle some of that up and send it down this way, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't say I've been missing the heat wave. I've been seeing everyone on Facebook talking about it. So
yeah, good night, man. All right, so how about let's start it off with your Cubbies right now. They just had a great series against our Atlanta Braves, taking 2 of 3. How scary would a Cubs roster be in the postseason?
It's weird because I never thought we'd be in this position. I know preseason I was saying we're going to be about 78 and 84. I don't really know what to expect because Steele is top 4 in Cy Young running right now, but then Stroman's really fallen off. Smiley's been terrible. I mean, the Central's wide open, which is great, but the Brewers getting Woodruff back makes it tough. But hey, we're right there in the wild card. I mean, if we make it, that's a win in my book this year.
Of course, Dansby Swanson and Cody Bellinger are the big names, but who's a guy that you've had your eye on that maybe you guys have brought up and you've just been so excited with him this year?
Honestly, the biggest spark plug's been Mike Tauchman. After going over, he was on the Rockies and then the Yankees and then played a year or 2 in Japan. I thought his career would be over, but he came back here and he's just really been a spark plug for this offense and defense. He threw Acuna out at home the other day, and he's just really been a decent leadoff hitter, and that's been our biggest weakness. I know Ross is more of a feel guy than stats guy, but he's hitting Nico up early, so we'll see.
We will see. All right. So looking at those postseason races right now, and Cubs, I know as of yesterday, were just a game and a half behind the Brewers for the lead in the National League Central. What do you think that you guys finished the season on top of the Central? Oh, now you're 2.5 games back. Would y'all lose to the Mets last night?
We did. I mean, it was a Drew Smiley day, so that's an automatic loss day.
All right, makes sense.
Kodai Senga was on short rest, but I know that's a bad loss, however you want to dice it. It's tough to see Drew Smiley pitching like he normally does again.
I feel your pain, though. The Braves losing to the Pittsburgh Pirates 7-6 last night wasn't the greatest feeling in the world either.
I know, and I want the Quad Father to win Cy Young, so I was bummed to see him get shellacked a little bit and get out-pitched by Omar Beto. But we'll see. The Cubs have a good stretch here where we have the Blue Jays, who are tough, and then we go White Sox, Royals, Tigers, Pirates, and then a huge string of games against the Brewers and Reds. So this will be really telling to see if we're going to be in the hunt or not. But you got to take at least you should probably sweep the White Sox, who are totally falling apart. What a joke of an organization right now they are with Middleton airing out the beef. Did you see Lance Lynn's interview today?
I didn't see Lance Lynn's. I saw Middleton's yesterday.
They asked him. They said, "What about Middleton said? Do you disagree with?" He's like, "Oh, I'll tell you." And then he just sat there silently.
That's kind of funny, man. He's definitely enjoying the run support over there in L.A. though right now.
Yeah, absolutely. L.A. is starting to look like L.A., which sucks for the rest of the league, but
kind of back to Middleton, though, I don't mean this as negatively as what it's going to come off, but he went from one organization right now that's definitely a laughing stock of the league, but I don't think that the Yankees are in. If they were in any other division, maybe so, but it just seems like everything that's going on right now, especially with your boy Anthony Rizzo and some of the other players, something's just amiss over there in Yankeetown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on. He's not really talking from higher ground, especially after they lost to his former team with Garrett Cole on the mound. But I don't know. I understand, it's kind of like your ex-girlfriend or something. You're talking trash on him, but he's not really in that much better of a position. And I think the Yankees might be clearing house with Boone and
Cashman too. Oh boy, that'll be an interesting offseason if they get rid of both of those guys. It's just so tough though to be in that American League East, and you're 3 games over 500 right now. The Yankees are, and you're 12.5 games back of the surging Baltimore Orioles right now. Speaking of those Baltimore Orioles, let's start with, do they hang on and win the AL East?
I think they do, especially with this McClanahan news for the Rays. They're just so beat up, losing Rasmussen and Springs already for the year to Tommy John, and now McClanahan. And I don't blame their staff or trainers. That's just a fluke thing. Those are all younger arms besides Springs. And Springs looked so dang good in those first 3 starts. But I think the Orioles are going to get it done. And I know you also want to segue that into Kevin Brown. I mean, that's just such a joke. The Orioles are so lucky that their front office and team looks so good right now, because their ownership has been a joke for so long, and they're the 28th in payroll. And for anyone not familiar, because the Kevin Brown comments were basically that they've won more this year than the past 2.5 years combined at Tropicana Field. I mean, I don't know how you can get suspended for that. That's such a joke and so soft on the Orioles organization. Like, you're pointing out a stat, and facts don't lie. So.
Yeah, no, and for him to be as professional with it, and this isn't the first time that it's happened. Apparently, they did this in I want to say mid '80s or '90s with one of their beloved broadcasters. But apparently, if you're not on point with the Angelos, then they will make you know that something is amiss right there, if you will. But what I've loved about it though is that across baseball last night, all of the other broadcasts were kind of telling them what they thought. And so one of the broadcasts that I did hear was actually from the Mets, just talking about how wrong the situation is, wrong the way that they're treating Kevin Brown, especially he's one of the better young broadcasters in the game right now.
Yeah, no, he is, and I'm with him on that. I liked what Jason Benetti said. Jason Benetti is such a talented guy.
Yeah.
He's calling for the White Sox, and he's on ESPN a lot. Calls games with Bill Walton on Pac-12 sometimes, which is nothing short of a chore there. So He said the White Sox have won 6 of their 13 games at Tropicana. Please don't suspend me, Orioles organization.
That is pretty funny. I don't think it's as bad as what Colin Cowherd said either today or yesterday when talking about quarterbacks that won't win the Super Bowl. And I'm not going to go down that trail. But if you go to Twitter, I'm sure you could just type in Dwayne Haskins and figure that out on your own. Lionel go ahead.
Yeah, the Colin Cowherd comments.
Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, ooh. And again, I don't want to dive too deep into that, but that had to be one of those things where the producer had already messed up the graphic by putting can win the Super Bowl instead of can't win the Super Bowl. A very awkward mistake there. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think on that situation. 850-215.
How do you not know that as an analyst?
I mean, if you're calling Cowherd, your producers anyways, but that to me is like Nathaniel Hackett getting all of the blame for the time management issues on the Broncos. Like, yeah, if your quarterback was Zach Wilson or something, I get it, like a young gun, but the fact is you had a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson at some point in the season could have been like, you know what, coach, if you don't got to play in my helmet that I'm hearing within 15 seconds or whatever, then I'm going to have a wristband of plays to run in that event because it seems like we're, continuously doing this and something's got to give there. How about Leo Messi though, man? And he's just continuing to dominate. Nothing surprising at all, but I'll give you a few minutes to rave on your guy.
Yeah, oh my gosh, dude. The angle of his free kick goal is nuts, dude. That's such a perfectly placed kick. That's an elite kick in any level. Not even discrediting the MLS, but it's funny to see him playing at this level now because people are seeing like, okay, this guy is absurd. Like what he does, he scored the first goal of the match and then scores the crucial free kick to tie it up at 4-4 and then was money from the spot in PKs. He's a once in a lifetime talent. I don't know if we'll see a better soccer player than him in our lifetime, but that's one of the people where like soccer evolves for sure, but I don't know if we'll see someone that good. He's made an instant transition and impact, and like you're coming all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, like you're adjusting from being in Paris to Miami, and you're doing this. It's disgusting. He's so dang good.
Yeah, and I mean, is it making the MLS better though?
It totally is. It's getting Americans into soccer, which is cool, and it's going to be getting the MLS more notoriety, and rightfully so. It's the best player to ever play the game, and he's still a top player in the world, so it's just awesome to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and it is fun watching him play. And I haven't sat down and watched a whole game or anything like that, but just watching a couple of the highlights and highlights of the game, it's interesting. He's always moving, and they can never stick with him for some reason. But let's talk a little soccer elsewhere. How about that U.S. women's national team, their loss in the round of 16?
Yeah, we got, and I know, people have their thoughts on Rapinoe. She's definitely overrated. She's more known for her vocalness than her talent, but her missing that PK and her saying, she hasn't missed a PK in years, or she's saying all the quotes of the results will show, blah, 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 and the last play in your international career is botching a PK and getting sky miles on that kick. That's a tough way to lose. And as a teammate, no matter who it is, especially one who has been very vocal about, has honestly probably ruined some of the culture on that team because that team was just gelling for so long. And then, as we always say, like, you don't want to get political when we're talking about sports, but that's what happened with that team. And she was forcing players to knee and getting mad that players wouldn't kneel during the anthem. Like, it's hard because I always am gung-ho rooting for America, but it was one of those times where it's like, it kind of got some karma there. So I don't feel that bad, and it's embarrassing because that team should have made a much longer run. And yeah, they had great defense, but also they couldn't score, and they were a post kick away against Portugal from not even advancing. So it's a poor showing on them for sure. And now they made the same round as the U.S. men's team, so they can't be railing them about pay as much anymore.
Yeah, there is that. That is true. So who do you think? Who would you have in the final of the World Cup, the Women's World Cup?
Man, Sweden's looked good. I'll roll with Sweden.
Sweden taking on Japan?
Actually, never mind. Japan. I'm going with Japan, dude. Japan's been so clinical. They don't really, just touch around with like how Spain does or a lot of those Euro teams. They play their own version of soccer, and they really just dominate the middle of the field. And then when they're in the attacking third, it's just a breakaway pass. They've got a couple fast strikers. They look like the best team in the tournament. I know that's kind of a cold take because they're favored, but I don't see anyone taking them down.
I had no idea that they were favored or anything. I do know that I saw a little. I saw some content somewhere saying that Japan was the next favorites, but I thought that the very next day England took them over. That just shows you how close I've been paying attention. I do gotta say though, Max, I did accidentally tune in to that Women's World Cup. No, seriously, I woke up and the next thing you know, I'm watching the penalty kicks. It was I think it was tied or USA was up 1 at the point in time, not one goal but just one PK there. And it wasn't like I was rooting against them, but it was one of those situations where it's like, man, like normally I'd be all gung ho, like come on,
Right,
but it was just like, and for me, it's not some of the other things that a lot of other people are ticked off. It's more or less about the money, like just being so focused on that. Not saying that that's the reason that you lost. The reason that you lost is like it's a game and things are gonna happen. You know what I mean? But
absolutely.
So for me, that's not the reason that they lost or the root. But when you're sitting there and you're worried so much about equal pay and your reasoning for equal pay is because you're winning, the World Cups, and then you don't even make it past the round of 16. It's like man, that's just one of those issues. But Max, thanks.
Putt for dough.
Yeah, exactly. Padres make it to the postseason. If they do, are they the Phillies of last year? Who is the Phillies of last year right now at this point in time in the season?
Man, that is a good question. Wow, I don't know who I would take as the Phillies of last year. That's maybe the Blue Jays.
Ooh, Blue Jays, yeah.
I think the Blue Jays because they have the star power but haven't really performed up to their standards. I would want to say like a hotter take team like the Twins or something or the Mariners, but they've been so underwhelming. So
hey, the Mariners have started to play. The Mariners have been playing decent. I think they're on a 6 or 7 game win streak.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think I want to say they're 60 and 52 now, or somewhere around there. About
60 and 52
games above 500.
5 game win streak. My mistake. 5 game win streak.
Still though, they're one of the only teams. I don't know how much people like. It's a weird stat to read into run differential. I know the Cubs have a really good one, so it makes it easier for me. But at the same time, like there's so many games where there's blowouts and position players still come in. But I know they're highly positive as far as that goes, and they're still, I think, 3 games out right now of the wild card because the AL is just so dang deep. It's a shame that we have to include the AL Central in the playoffs.
Yeah, to a degree, I like that. If you're going to be in a division, you're going to play more games against those teams, then, I think you should be rewarded with a playoff spot. But for those Mariners, they are plus 47. In fact, basically the entire American League West has a positive run differential. I like run differential or using that to an extent, but it's definitely not anywhere close to an end-all, be-all. But, hey, Max, thanks so much for giving us a call from Wisconsin. What you want to leave us with?
For sure. My last question for you is going to be, outside of my Cubbies, of course, which I don't even know if you want them in, what team that's not in right now do you want to see in the playoffs?
Oh, man.
Like Miami.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think that I would like to see the Marlins in there, but if it's not going to be them, it would be the Reds or the Cubs. The Reds or the Cubs, I think, would be a fun team to see in there. Now, as far as I don't want to see the Padres. I don't think any baseball fans, unless you're a Padre fan, wants to see the Padres in there because they've got great pitching, they've got a great roster. If they put it all together at the right time, you better watch out. Max, thanks so much, man. You have a great one. You're riding with the afternoon.
Thank you. Great talking to you guys.
Absolutely, man. You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. This is ESPN Northwest Florida. We'll be right back. We're going to play a little traffic jam and trivia.
ESPN Northwest Florida.
The Atlanta Braves play here.
That ball is going to be out of here. The tradition continues tonight. The Atlanta Braves at the Pittsburgh Pirates. Listen to play-by-play in ultra-high fidelity live from PNC Park.
Line drive, base hit, left field.
First pitch is 6:05 right after the Afternoon Underdogs. On your home for the Atlanta Braves on the Gulf Coast.
He went the other way.
ESPN Northwest Florida. This is Joanna with your latest forecast on ESPN Northwest Florida this Tuesday. The rest of the day, a mixture of some sun and a possibility of thunderstorms and 90 with a moderate breeze around 14 miles per hour out of the west-southwest. Tonight, partly cloudy skies with lows around 83. Tomorrow, partly sunny and a chance of thunderstorms and a temperature near 90. This forecast is brought to you by Earthworks of Northwest Florida. Thank you for keeping that dial at ESPN Northwest Florida. Rely on it.
Take your next adventure in an eco-friendly all-electric Kia EV6 that gives you the movement that inspires. You can live fully charged while saving now and down the road on fuel costs. Schedule a test drive today and explore the electrified Kia vehicles at Billboard Kia. You have to drive it to believe it. Now offering $7,500 EV lease bonus when you lease a new 2023 Kia EV6 wind electric all-wheel drive for 36 months. You'll get the perfect balance of comfort, safety, and technology with a performance that minimizes the impact of our environment. Billboard Kia is the home of the 20-year, 200,000-mile warranty. See us today at 2435 East 15th Street or BillboardKiaPanamaCity.com. We make it easy to switch to EV ownership and give you the peace of mind you can trust. Close-in lease based on a new 2023 Kia EV6, model number N5452. No security deposit required. $7,500 EV lease bonus not available for cash. Subject to credit approval, dealer participation, and vehicle availability. $49.99 due and signing for well-qualified leases. See dealer for complete details. The 20-year, 200,000-mile warranty is a Billboard Kia warranty. Must take delivery from dealer stock through 9/5/23.
From Tyndall Air Force Base to the Hathaway Bridge, we're live and local. It's the Afternoon Underdogs. 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
And we're back. It's the Afternoon Underdogs. I'm David Hayes with Tyler Bishop, and this is ESPN Northwest Florida. We never got a winner for our question yesterday. Which two teams played during the first live radio broadcast of college football? Which two teams played during the first live radio broadcast of college football? And none other than Cal Zethmar put this one on. I'm just joking. But 850-215-6290 for your chance to win $25 to not the, but that boot store and a 12-pack of Buffalo Rock. Braves last night lost 7-6 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was a tough loss, but the RBI streak continues for Matt Olson. Tonight you're going to have Yanni Chirinos going for the Bravos, and he'll be going up against the Pirates' Mitch Keller, who I just recently dropped from my fantasy baseball team. So hopefully he does not have a stellar outing tonight. Chirinos is going to be making his third start since coming over from Tampa Bay. Keller is 0-4 with a 9.97 ERA in 4 starts since pitching in the All-Star game last month. Coverage will be starting for your Atlanta Braves right here at 6 o'clock. First pitch tonight at 6:05. So that's pretty much all I got on the Atlanta Braves today, and there's not a whole lot that I want to dive into in Major League Baseball anyways, because like on Tuesdays we get pretty deep into the weeds of college football.
Real quick though, we do have so the Braves Cubs series this past weekend. Listener of the show, Brian Taylor, was at Wrigley Field and caught a home run ball this weekend.
Really?
At Wrigley, yeah.
Do you know who it was that hit the home run ball?
I'll look it up real quick and I'll try to get back to you. But yeah, so we're obviously friends with him on Facebook and saw it. So listener of the show, Brian, calls in a few Tuesdays. But
That's cool,
he was at Wrigley, caught a home run. I think it was Friday or Saturday.
Oh, man, if he was at the Friday game, he was at a gym, because Saturday and Sunday, unless he's a Cubs fan, then...
No, he's a Braves. He's a Falcons, Georgia Braves, all Atlanta all the time. And Brian, if you're listening, happy birthday, and that's awesome, man.
Oh, happy birthday, too. But, yeah, dude, I mean, to catch a home run ball, like the odds, I would like to know, maybe, a guy like Max or something, or Sam Peebles would be a great option for this as well.
Ian Happ.
There you go.
There's a home run off Ian Happ.
So that had to have been Saturday or Sunday.
The 5th.
Okay, so Saturday then. Yeah. Cool, man. That's really awesome. I mean, both of those games were really good games, especially if you like offense. Friday was a little one-sided for the Atlanta Braves. I believe that one was 8 or 9-0. And then the next two games were a little bit closer there, but still a lot of fun. So today, we're in this world of college football right now, right? With the NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff. And it has seemed that the rules of transferring and stuff have been thrown out the window. Until today, where I'm reading two different stories. One of them over there with the Florida State Seminoles. Coach Norvell came out today and said that the NCAA has denied a hardship waiver request that would have allowed Seminoles defensive tackle Darrell Jackson Jr. to play this year. He started over there in Maryland in 2021. Then he transferred to go to Miami. He played 11 games last year, 27 tackles, 3 sacks, and 4.5 tackles for loss. 4.5 tackles for loss. But then transferred to Florida State this offseason to be closer to his mom, who has a medical condition. He grew up in Havana, Florida, which is just about 20 minutes outside of the FSU campus there in Tallahassee. And now I get it, though. When you transfer within the conference, especially, you only get that one free transfer, but then you transfer within the conference, you got to sit a year out. Now, if he's using his mom as a cop-out, that's, one thing, and maybe the NCAA saw that. But in this, I mean, if there's validity to this, then I'm like, I don't, not a big fan of that.
Yeah, for all the things that NCAA doesn't seem to enforce a whole lot. Like Tennessee got a fine essentially for paying players for 4 years under Pruitt.
And Harbaugh lies about feeding someone a hamburger essentially, and he's going to get 4 games.
I mean, there was the whole Cam Newton thing back in the day. It's just like for them to care about this kind of stuff. Like you said, maybe he did blow out of proportion the mom's medical condition. I would never speculate on that, and I would hate for.
That's the only reason I even said that is because that's the only thing I can think of why the NCAA shouldn't just sign the waiver.
Yeah, no, it does seem kind of interesting. But I mean, I know the inter-conference transfer always makes it a little bit difficult. And it is his second transfer, so by rule, but it is still interesting. Like I said, between this one and the other one with North Carolina, I'm not 100% sure the facts behind that. It's just weird that all of a sudden they seem to be growing a backbone, which I wouldn't hate necessarily if I thought they were going to now do something on top of that. Like, okay, this is a stepping stone. We're going to start cracking down on stuff. But they're not going to. So it's just kind of like, we're flexing our muscles to do it this one time, but we're not actually doing anything to help the sport.
Right. And it's like if this was a quarterback or a big name, then I feel like they would just bend the rules enough,
especially if it was like an Arch Manning or a Quinn Ewers or somebody like that, like a big enough name it, that
it moves the needle or whatever. Because the other one is North Carolina's receiver Devontae Walker. He had his waiver for immediate eligibility denied, and that was, I believe, his family member with an ailment was his grandma, and he says that it's extremely difficult on him and his family, which I totally understand that.
So I got a question for you. So we've seen, I've seen plenty of guys like this. How do you feel? So if, say it's a sick mom or a sick grandma, sick aunt, or whoever is the reason why. If it was an established illness before they moved away, do you think that plays a part in the NCAA's minds? Like, well, you had no problem leaving your mom to begin with. Or I feel like mom is kind of strict because you have a much different relationship with your mother. Most people, your mom or grandma, whoever raised you, than like an aunt or a cousin.
Yeah, for sure.
But I wonder if the NCAA is like, well, you moved away knowing that they were sick, but now it's too much for you. I'm always curious on these kind of situations if that plays a role.
And then here's another one, and I don't like this, but I feel like it's pertaining to this. But why not take the year off and take care of your mom?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a very.
I mean, if you move back to be closer to your mom, having to sit out a year of football shouldn't be your biggest problem.
Yeah.
You should be able to then spend some extra time with her, whoever it is at that point, grandma, aunt, sister, whoever. So, like I said, I get it both ways, but and he did have his one free eligibility, and he didn't use it. He went to Miami instead of back home to Tallahassee. Home essentially to Tallahassee, and same with the other one. I think with North Carolina, I read earlier that their claim was, well, he never played after his first transfer.
Yeah, and he was at Kent State.
So technically, he never really played because so now they're trying to claim it's still a first-time transfer, which is that's not really.
And
how
if you're
works,
doing, and again, I have not been following either one of these stories very closely, but seeing them today, the only reason I'm even bringing them up is, come on now, if your mom's is sick, then I think the NCAA needs to be working with you on that. But it's like in this day and age of the transfer portal, and Ryan Mulvey just texted and said, is it because the transfer window isn't open? I'm not entirely sure.
I think they've already transferred. These were just waivers to apply for immediate eligibility,
so that they could play this year because these guys were already on their respective school. Devontae Walker may not be a North Carolina Tar Heel on the field this year, but he is on the roster until he transfers again. If I mean, who knows? With this day and age, maybe he gets that. Maybe his grandma, gets healthy again or whatever, and he's like, I'm going somewhere else.
Would you hope? You want his grandma to get better.
No, 1,000%. But I think playing sometimes for those hometown schools because of the element in someone in your family is it may not be that you actually want to play for that school. It's just the best option for you and your family. And if that's the case, then I think the NCAA in this day and age, like, make some exceptions.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, it's just kind of a weird thing to all of a sudden care a whole lot about. After a lot of things have gone on in the NCAA that are a lot more shady than this. But
right, we'll see how it all plays out, though. And then back to the Darrell Jackson Jr. though, had he not been in the ACC last year, this. Again, though, man, I just hate to. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, and then my mom is 20 minutes outside of Florida State's campus or whatever, and But at the end of the day, you could look at it like a Jamar Chase type situation where you get an extra year to kind of work on your craft. You're just not going to be getting any game film necessarily next year, but you'll definitely be a leader when it comes to next year's defensive side of the ball. Jonathan Taylor. We've been talking a lot about him. The all-pro running back has left training camp there in Indianapolis to continue rehabbing his ankle off-site. That's according to ESPN. Who are you more worried about playing football in 2023, Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Taylor?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I would have to say Jonathan Taylor because, I know Josh Jacobs wants to get paid, but, there's not an active Twitter brawl, essentially, between Twitter, but there is between Taylor and Irsay right now. I guess I didn't realize or think about it a whole lot until the quarterback documentary of how much training goes on outside of the facility. Like Patrick Mahomes, it really never showed him training at the Chiefs facilities. It was a whole lot of his own private guy. So I don't know how out of the norm it is for somebody to rehab elsewhere, not in the team facility, whether it's his doctor that performed it or a company he trusts or that's used by just 50% of the NFL athletes. So maybe this isn't as big of a deal as a lot of people are trying to make it out to, but it's definitely got to be Taylor because, Josh Jacobs has been fairly quiet on the whole situation. I haven't heard a whole lot out of him, or personally I have not nearly to the extent of the Jonathan Taylor thing and then the whole requesting a trade. And Irsay's just a wild card. If we're being honest, there's nothing that man could do that would surprise me. He's trying to relocate an orca whale. What is he doing? I don't know. He was offered $1 billion for a guitar collection he had. He's like, nah, the money's not worth it to me. I like my collection type deal. It's just the guy is a complete and total wild card. So if Jonathan Taylor says I'm not playing for it, he's gonna be like, all right, I guess you're not playing then.
Yeah.
And just walk away and just go, whatever. And it's nothing would surprise me that man does. So it's gonna be an interesting year for Indianapolis because that'd be such a great weapon for Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew to lean on as they're getting that new system in place and trying to build for the future in that division.
Back to that other story that we were talking about with Darrell Jackson Jr. Not being immediately available for Florida State. Justin says FSU's old AD is on the board making the decision about the transfer. He says it feels like he might be sticking it to his old university, which could be true. And then he also commented when we were talking about the Cubs and Ian Happ. He says he never understands Cubs fans throwing a home run ball back. And it was interesting because Matt Olson hit one to center field the other day, and one of the fans jumped down into where the ball was, which was in center field. There wasn't any seating in this particular section or whatever. So I'm trying to think of what it is back there, kind of like more hedges or whatever. Yeah. They jumped in there and threw the ball back onto the field.
Nah, man, if that was me, you ain't getting that thing back.
No, man,
not for free at least.
And Andrew Jones was actually sitting in center field out there. So this was on Friday's game. So yeah, wait. I think it was on Friday's game. It could have been Saturday's game. I don't know. It's all running together right now until we get to week 1. Week 0 of the college football
2 weeks
season.
Away now, right?
Justin Houston signing with the Panthers. This could be huge for that 3-4 defense that they run. What do you think about that? Justin Houston being on the defense now for for a Panthers team that could be vying to win the NFC South.
I mean, I don't think he's a full-time pass rush specialist like he used to be. You know, he's been very successful, very prolific in the league, playing for the Chiefs and the Ravens primarily. But he's a great guy for like Brian Burns and, you know, some of those younger guys to lean on and kind of help bring some veteran mentality and veteran leadership to a roster overchanging its head coach, new quarterback coming in, a lot of newness coming on there. A guy like that can kind of help with the locker room and kind of giving them a competitive vibe. And I'm excited for him, former Dog. So anytime Georgia guys are getting paid in the NFL, it's always cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And our last little piece here before we get to our number 2, Kareem Hunt expected to sign with the New Orleans Saints as well as Anthony Barr. So that's one running back off the board now, and it could be quite possibly not one of the ones that others were thinking when you've got Dalvin Cook out there supposedly going to be signing with the New York Jets. You still got Zeke out there. You still got Lenny Fournette. I mean, there's still a lot of like running backs out there that, you know, if you get them for the right price, can bring some value to your team.
I mean, Kareem Hunt, especially with Kamara missing those first couple games, is a really interesting because that's what he was best known for. His first couple years in Kansas City was coming out of the backfield, catching a ton of passes, and that was his primary role in Cleveland. You know, is catching the ball in the backfield, spelling Nick Chubb. So, I mean, I think that's a great fit and can really kind of, and then it gives you both of them throughout the rest of the year in case because Kamara wasn't quite as productive last year. Kareem Hunt's a little bit younger, so it could end up being a great move for the Saints.
And you got Jamal Williams, you got Kendre Miller, and also Eno Benjamin. So, but actually, he's on injured reserve. I just saw that with a. So they don't have Eno Benjamin, who was with the Cardinals, I believe, last year, if not definitely the year prior to that. It's the Afternoon Underdogs. This is ESPN Northwest Florida. We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll be right back with our Big 12 predictions.
ESPN Northwest Florida.
The tradition continues.
That ball is going to be out of here.
The Atlanta Braves play here.
Bombs away.
The Atlanta Braves are back and making a statement.
Head first slide, 2 RBI triple.
Listen to Atlanta Braves baseball in a rich audio experience live on ESPN Northwest Florida.
Here comes the thunder.
Sponsored by Bestway Portable Buildings, Dave and Buster's, PCB Hobby, and Gulf Coast Aquarium.
This is Joanna with ESPN Northwest Florida with your Tuesday's weather. Tonight there will be a calm wind out of the southwest, partly cloudy skies and 83. A chance of thunderstorms and mostly sunshine tomorrow morning, about the same at 90. In the afternoon and evening, a likelihood of thunderstorms and some sun and a high of 89. The same at 90 Thursday, and we'll have a mixture of mostly sunshine and possible thunderstorms. This forecast is brought to you by Ellis Agency Insurance. Thank you for keeping that dial on ESPN Northwest Florida. Rely on it.
Chuck was terrible at fishing. He spent many frustrating hours attempting to get results he saw from internet videos, aggravating trial and error fishing trips, and misguided advice from well-intended friends. Chuck is happy now with his newfound success after he visited Bay Breeze Bait and Tackle, where we keep fishing fun, simple, and successful. See us soon at Bay Breeze Bait and Tackle, located directly off Highway 98 on the west end of Panama City Beach.
Los Rancheros has been doing it right for 20 years. Los Rancheros brings a top-shelf dining experience to you with the opening of their beautiful new building. Watch all college and pro games on Los Rancheros' 14 large-screen TVs with great drink specials daily from 2 to 5 and during all the games. Los Rancheros, the place for live sports and great food on 23rd Street between Jenks and Harrison.
The Atlanta Braves play here.
And the Braves are back in front.
WGSX Lynn Haven, WVLQ Port St. John, ESPN Northwest Florida. Hot takes, the latest trades, in-depth interviews.
That is my reaction.
We break it down for you right here.
Very big springboard for the rest of my career.
The Afternoon Underdogs.
That's the problem right there.
104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
And it's hour number 2 of the Afternoon Underdogs here on ESPN Northwest Florida, 104.3 in Panama City, 101.9 in Port St. Joe. I'm David Hayes along with Tyler Bishop. We're going to dive into our Big 12 predictions, but if you out there are a fantasy football player and you'd like to play in one of our 4 leagues here on ESPN Northwest Florida, shoot me a text over at 850-215-6290 with your name and email, and I will give you the details and instructions on what you need to proceed. Also, we had our auction draft. What was that? Sunday evening. Yeah. So before, we've only got one preseason game, but it was a ton of fun. And I would always prefer to have the drafts a little bit later, but there's just something about once you get that first draft out of the way or whatever, where it's like, man, I can't wait.
Well, as long as you're not doing it like July, it's like, we've got my first fantasy football draft, football season's actually here, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, trying to do it live and getting everybody together, you got to do it when you can get it done. But no, it's always a great time. Like I said, if anybody here either hasn't done a live draft, which sign up for this one, do it. It's a great time. Even if you don't know everybody, just knowing somebody.
Yeah.
But just getting together and being able to talk trash is always a good time as the picks roll in. But then an auction style draft is always it's a whole different animal. There's a huge learning curve to it if you've never done it before. But 10 out of 10 definitely would recommend. Get 8-10 buddies together, do it on a Sunday cookout, make a whole deal out of it, and just have a blast.
And I've been doing it for what, three years?
I think it's the third year, yeah.
Yeah, it was my third one with you guys, and I really didn't know anyone except for Tyler and Barrett out of there. But I mean, great group of guys, and it's fun when you're trying to cut each other down to get players that you want and stuff. I don't think it was as wild this year as what we especially last year. Last year was like Derrick Henry for 120 or whatever, you know what I mean? But it was a lot of fun. And then also Jordan and who was it? What's the name of the show?
Oh, the Hot Ones.
The Punishment.
It
was the Hot Ones, right? And so Jordan and Jordan and Harrison, they had to they did that. And man, they got the actual sauces or sauces from a certain episode or whatever. And man, I wonder how they were feeling the next day.
Yeah, they said they were not feeling so great the next morning, but just boiling your insides at that point. But
I know I did a couple of drops or whatever of the hottest one on a chicken wing, and it was hot. Don't get me wrong, but it had a good flavor to it. But then again, I'm not dousing it in there.
Yeah, when you're coating a whole wing and then you're adding 10, because it's 10, 1 through 10, and just multiplying that heat on top of itself.
That's the other thing is I did one wing where they were doing 10, and so I was like, yeah, sure, 1's not too bad. 2's like, okay, a little bit, and then you got 3, and then I didn't do this, so I'm not speaking from experience, but I can only imagine that then you get to 5 and everything else. I'm sure that at that point you probably can't even fill your mouth. You have no idea what 10 actually tastes like.
No, it's just you're just trying to get it done as quick as possible and just hope the side effects aren't killing you from the inside out.
Oh my goodness, man. It would not be good to finish in last place in that league if you don't have a strong stomach or if you're not good with the hot stuff. Let's see here. What else do we got to get into before we get into our Big 12 predictions? Oh, the blast at Bay Point. We're 36 minutes away from playing a little high-low. When you hear the cue to call, be calling number 10, 850-215-6290. If you get the number correctly, you and a guest will win 18 holes at Bay Point Golf Club. This is your last week to play, so don't miss out on the fun. As a consolation prize, if you don't get the number correctly, if you're a little too high or a little too low, you will get a large bucket of range balls down there at Bay Point Golf Club. Beautiful golf course. All right, so let's dive into it. Last week, we finally wrapped up after about a month of work. Oh, one thing. That's right. Ryan Mulvey was texting me, and so apparently Kareem Hunt did not leave the Saints with a contract, and what I was saying earlier was expected to sign according to Diana Rossini, but Ryan was telling me that he's visiting the Colts. Kareem Hunt is visiting the Colts as we speak, and we'll see how that works out. Who would be a better fit for Kareem Hunt? Would it be the Saints or the Colts?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think probably the Saints, just because I think that offense is already kind of centered around Kamara catching the ball, so you can kind of plug Hunt into that similar role. I'm not saying he couldn't do similar things to Jonathan Taylor, but with that quarterback situation, new play caller, new scheme coming in, I'm not going to sit here and say I know as well what they're going to try to run up there in Indianapolis. I'm going to say the Saints for now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then back to, for me, I'm going to say the Colts, though, just because so much up in the air. Moss is injured. I did find out last night, I was talking to my buddy Dalton, that they signed Kenyon Drake. Which,
okay.
that his career's kind of past him, but maybe he can, fill into that Zach Moss type role for the Indianapolis Colts. Irsay doesn't care, because once Irsay's gone and once Jonathan Taylor's gone, the NFL is still going to be moving. He wasn't wrong saying that.
He's not wrong. It's just people don't want to hear it all the time. Right. But he wasn't necessarily wrong either.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Sometimes it
There's
might
a time and a place for things sometimes, so that may not have been the time or the place.
But as the owner, I guess who I really feel bad for in this whole entire situation, actually, I'll throw out two people. One is Anthony Richardson, because if he is going to be QB1, he's not getting the most out of not Jonathan Taylor, but like he's injured and all of that stuff, but it's still a distraction for the team, and I don't think that that's conducive for a rookie quarterback. Oh, and guess what? The head coach is a rookie as well, and Shane Steichen. So
it's not a great way to start your first season for either of them.
No.
Makes it just very, I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word, but it's just not building the culture you probably want to first time around.
100%. All right, so we took us about 4 weeks, but we did last week finally get through our Pac-12 projections, and I had Washington and USC and Oregon all with an 11-1 record. So, wow.
And then they lost in like a ring around each other.
It was Washington loses to USC, USC loses to Oregon, and Oregon loses to Washington. So it was one of those, and I would have to see all of the numbers and how they play out to get to the tiebreaker. But I'm going to say,
if they're still doing divisions, I think it would end up being USC Oregon versus Washington, because Washington would beat Oregon for the division, and then Southern Cal's in a different division.
Well, no, because I have,
because South Carolina's in the
so it'd be Washington and USC.
Be Washington, USC. If they have divisions this year, I'm not 100% certain, honestly.
Who knows what's going on with the Pac-12?
We'll just assume there's divisions for right now.
Let's assume there's divisions. So I'll have Washington versus USC in the championship. I'm gonna go with Washington, man. Like
Huskies make the playoff again.
Yeah, I'm gonna have that. There's just something for me that, like, until USC does it, there's gonna be that hype around them, right? There's gonna be that hype, and there's not gonna be as much on Washington. And I mean, if a team like Utah could do it, which had a great season last year, but that they can knock off USC twice in a year, and Washington is the way I have it built out, they're going to lose to USC, so I think Washington gets their vengeance in the Pac-12 championship game, and then still misses the college football playoff, though.
I like it. No, mine's a little bit cleaner. I've got Oregon and USC both at 11-1. I had Washington dropping 2, so that makes mine a little bit less easy, difficult to figure out. But I've got Oregon beating USC in the regular season. I've got them beating again in the Pac-12 title game. I think what we've seen with Lincoln Riley teams is the lack of defense is going to haunt them in those bigger games against the more powerful teams. And I mean, if it's 58-55, so be it. But if I'm trusting Dan Lanning or Lincoln Riley to make one stop to win a game, I'm going with the national championship winning defensive coordinator. So
I'm with you on that. And then what I just said, Washington going 11-1, winning the Pac-12. So by that virtue,
they'd almost have to be in the playoffs.
That's what I like. That's why I was like, well, I don't know if I can necessarily say that, because more than likely Michigan, Ohio State, when they get their date, last game of the year of the regular season, I perceive both of those teams to be 11-0.
Yeah.
Right. So then whichever team loses is going to be on the back burner. But I still think that people are going to look at the Big Ten 11-1 more favorably than the 11-1 from the Pac-12. But but like you said,
12-1 is better than 11-1.
12-1 is better than 11-1. That is a factual point. So we'll just have to see if any of this actually happens.
Odds are probably not, but okay.
I just don't know how, like, if there's a Pac-12 team that gets into the college football playoff, like we've seen Washington do it before, not a great showing. We've seen Oregon, who's had a pretty good showing in year one of the college football playoff. So it would be Oregon would be
and
the
they've
team
been shut
I would
out
want to
since,
see.
right? It was
Who's that?
Oregon and Washington. Washington was 2016, and they haven't made it back since, right?
I don't think they have. No.
Yeah. Man.
Because those are the only teams that's made it is Oregon and Washington.
So what, a 6 or 7 year drop for the Pac-10 and Pac-12? Can they break that? Can they break that strap before they dissolve?
Let's see. How crazy would that be? Let's go
get 2
one
teams
step
in right
further.
before they dissolve.
That's really far. That's really bizarre. So let's say Washington and Oregon, or Washington and USC, and that they're 1-2, or let's say more than likely 3-4. So they don't play each other in that first round, and then knock off both both of the either SEC or Big Ten teams, and now you got an all Pac-12 championship in the final year of the Pac-12.
It'd be a great, it'd be almost a storybook, like a movie ending that's completely unfeasible. But hey, we're kind of hoping for it a little bit.
They're over there on the West Coast, man. Bring a little Hollywood to the world of college football. Why not? Let's dive into the Big 12, though. We can start with Baylor. I don't know how you want to do this, if you want to go game by game or just kind of team by team here with only about 9 minutes. Let's start off with the big teams. Okay. All right. So, well, actually, you know what? Let's start off with the newcomers. We'll start off with BYU here. Of course, they've got Sam Houston State and another logo I don't recognize right now. So 2-0 easy for BYU. You agree there?
Yep.
Then they've got Arkansas. They're hosting Arkansas in the third week of the season.
Game. The Grays are home for this one. It's backwards the other one for some reason.
My whole I can just throw this away now because I really did, some of the games looking at them and like, oh, I like this team at the house here. Why in the world would Gray be the home games? I get it. It says it right there in the legend.
Who knows what they're doing out there?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Arkansas hosting BYU, and either way, I've got it as a loss for BYU.
Yep.
Kansas. How about Kansas?
I got BYU taking out Kansas, getting their first Big 12 win.
I've got Kansas winning that game. Okay. Then they are hosting Cincinnati. And I had this as a law. I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to kind of take another look at it later on and see if there's any that are really standing out to me that I should change. But Cincinnati, I'm going to say wins that ball game.
I got BYU winning that one Friday night in Provo. So
there you go. I think Cincinnati's going to have a decent year in the Big 12. Then BYU's got a bye week. Then they've got TCU. I think we both agree there. TCU wins at the house.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, that's at the house. I'm so confused now with the Gray. Texas Tech, I think BYU takes down Texas Tech, even though they're ranked 24th.
I got the Red Raiders pulling that one off.
There you go. All right. Then they're going to be on the road taking on Texas.
Loss.
On the road taking on West Virginia. I got that as a win for BYU.
I got that as a loss for BYU.
All right. Iowa State, they've got 2 games at the house. They are hosting Iowa State. I've got that as a loss. A win for Iowa State.
See, and I got to win in that one.
So we're like who knows exactly opposite. Oklahoma.
They lose to Oklahoma.
We agree. And then they wrap the season up with Oklahoma State.
Loss.
That's a loss as well for me. So I've got the record at 4-8.
I've got them at 5-7.
Okay, so we're close. It just sounds like we were way off with each other. All right, let's go to UCF, the next new team here. They're going to start off with Kent State, then Boise State, then Villanova. That is Villanova, right?
Yep.
I didn't even know.
I didn't know. I assume it's Villanova, but I've got them open up 3-0.
You got them. All right, I've got them going 3-0. Then they are on the road taking on Kansas State here. I've got Kansas State winning that game.
I've also got and it is Villanova, but I do have Kansas State winning that game.
And then they've got Baylor.
Loss.
That's at the house, but I've got that as a loss as well. I've got Kansas State. So to this point in the season, 3-2, and definitely UCF is a team that you want to keep your eye on. Randy Pittman out of Mosley is going to be playing with the Golden Knights of UCF in the Big 12. So right before their bye week, they've got a date with Kansas. They're on the road at Kansas.
Kansas gives up their first win to a Big 12 team. I got them losing to UCF.
I've actually got UCF winning this game as well. Then they get the bye week, kind of reset everything. Then they are on the road against Oklahoma. I've got Oklahoma.
I've got Oklahoma as well. That's a really interesting one because Oklahoma's quarterback is Dylan Gabriel, former UCF quarterback. So I think that makes it a little bit more intriguing than the average game, but Oklahoma takes that.
Yeah, and if Dylan Gabriel was healthy last year, we're not talking about it. What was Oklahoma, 6-6?
Yeah,
last year. I think that we're looking at an 8-4 Oklahoma with a healthy year-round Dylan Gabriel. The next game for the Golden Knights is going to be at home where they're hosting the Mountaineers of West Virginia.
I think they take that one over the West Virginia Mountaineers.
I've got UCF winning that, and then they're on the road taking on Cincinnati. I've got UCF winning that one as well.
Yep.
Then they're hosting Oklahoma State. I've got UCF dropping that one to Okie State.
Same.
And then how about Texas Tech? What do you got? They're on the road.
I've got them closing out the last two of the win, Texas Tech and Houston.
All right, I'm a little different there. I've got them beating Texas Tech, and then I've got them losing to Houston in the final week of the season before a very respectable record in the first year in the Big 12 at 7-5.
I've got them at 8-4.
8-4. There you go. These next two teams, that is the record that I have for them. Cincinnati, I've got them beating Eastern Kentucky. I've got them beating Pitt. I've got them beating Miami of Ohio. I've got them losing their first loss to Oklahoma.
See, I've got them losing to Pitt, and I've got them losing to Oklahoma.
All right.
So I got them starting out 2-2. Cincinnati does not fare too well for my predictions.
Yeah. Then we're moving on to BYU. They are on the road taking on BYU. I've got Cincinnati winning that.
I already have them losing that one, so I've got another loss there, starting off 2-3.
Then they get their bye week. They've got Iowa State at the house, and then Baylor at the house. I've got them splitting those, beating Iowa State, losing to the Baylor Bears.
Same.
All right, we'll move on. Another away game against Oklahoma State. In this fashion, I've got Oklahoma State winning that one.
Agreed.
And then home against UCF, we just kind of covered this. I've got Cincinnati winning that game. Cincinnati losing that game.
Cincinnati losing that one, same.
Then they've got Houston. I've got Cincy winning that one.
Yep.
Then they've got West Virginia on the road. I've got them winning that one.
I've got a loss there.
And then I've got them beating Kansas.
And I've got a loss there.
All right. So what's your record for Cincinnati?
4-8.
4-8. I mean, that makes sense. I think I'm giving them a little bit too much love, anyways, especially with it being first year.
New staff, new conference. It could be harsh.
It could be very harsh. But the other thing, on the flip side of that, is last year. When we opened up the show, we were talking about the Big 12 and the cannibalization that could be this year. I felt like they were that way last year, where there was a lot of good talent, and I thought that they were going to be one of the best conferences when it came to the bowl games, and they let me down. They let me down bad. They made me look stupid.
I think it just kind of showed like the top wasn't quite as good as some people thought, and the bottom, they were all a lot closer than we kind of expected.
Yeah. 100%. All right, so that'll do it there for Cincinnati. You've got them at 4-8. I've got them at 8-4. I've got Houston going 8-4. Very similar, kind of taking. And in fact, though, what do you have Houston's record being?
4-8.
4-8. So you've got them losing that first game of the season to UTSA?
No, I've actually got them winning that one.
I've got them winning that one as well. They're hosting UTSA to start the season. Then they've got Rice, so back-to-back wins for them. Then they're hosting TCU. I've got them that as a loss for them.
Yep.
Then they're hosting Sam Houston State. Got them winning that. Then this is probably where I need to change it up a little bit. They're on the road at Texas Tech. I thought they're hosting Texas Tech, which I had Houston winning that. And so as of now, I've got them winning it. Then they get a bye week. Then they're hosting West Virginia and Texas back-to-back. I got them beating West Virginia but losing to Texas.
Yep.
And then I've got them, they're on the road again. They've got Kansas State.
Loss.
Same. They're on the road at Baylor. I've got them beating Baylor. I don't know why I've got them. I know, and I've got a good projection in a sense for Baylor, same as the last three schools, 8-4. Cincinnati, they're hosting Cincinnati and they're hosting Oklahoma State in back-to-back weeks in November. I've got them losing to Cincinnati but winning against Oklahoma State.
I've got them losing out the way there. Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, UCF. Final
game of the season, UCF. So you've got them with a loss there. I've actually got them winning to have a 8-4
in the bounce
record.
house in Orlando.
There you go. So for the four teams that are brand new to the Big 12, I had 8-4 for Houston, 8-4 for Cincinnati, 7-5 for UCF, and 4-8 for BYU.
I had 5-7 for BYU, 4-8 UCF, 4-8 and 4-8 for Cincinnati and Houston.
All right, then. So let's just kind of look at some of the records. What record do you have for West Virginia?
West Virginia, I've got them at 3-9.
3-9.
It's a tough year for the Mountaineers.
I can beat that. Ooh. I got them at 1-10 with their lone win against Duquesne, and the war. And so here's my issue with that is I really think that they're going to win more games than that. But I'm wondering if just kind of everything that's happened with athletics in general with West Virginia right now could either be a motivator or could it be a distraction. So I use the distraction side. And again, until we see them, and we're gonna get a good look at West Virginia very early on, September 2nd, when they're taking on Penn State. But I've got them going 1-10. We're gonna wrap this up when we return. It's the Afternoon Underdogs, and you're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. If you want to talk some Big 12 football with us. Give us a call or text 850-215-6290.
ESPN Northwest Florida presents The Blast at Bay Point. Listen to Win Your Tea Time at the legendary Bay Point Golf Club in beautiful Panama City Beach.
You ready to play some high-low?
I'm going to try.
Listen weekdays at 8:40, 12:40, and 5:40 to play high-low for a chance to win 18 holes at Bay Point Golf Club.
I tell you what, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to love it.
Listen to Win the Blast at Bay Point from ESPN Northwest Florida.
This is Joanna with ESPN Northwest Florida with your Tuesday's weather. Tonight there will be a calm wind out of the southwest, partly cloudy skies and 83. A chance of thunderstorms and mostly sunshine tomorrow morning, about the same at 90. In the afternoon and evening, a likelihood of thunderstorms and some sun and a high of 89. The same at 90 Thursday, and we'll have a mixture of mostly sunshine and possible thunderstorms. This forecast is brought to you by Ellis Agency Insurance. Thank you for keeping that dial on ESPN Northwest Florida. Rely on it.
Ben and Deb Collins, owners of Bay Guns and Gear, have been in business since 2010, offering new firearms and accessories with a huge selection available for your hunting needs and personal defense. Turn to Bay Guns and Gear. They have the weapon for you. Discount pricing. And if you can't find what you're looking for, they'll special order it for you. Bay Guns and Gear, across from Grease Pro at 3115 Highway 77. Visit their website, baygunsandgear.com.
With over 65 years of combined experience, Instant Replay Sports Cards is happy to help you take your collection to the next level. They carry all the new hobby boxes, signed memorabilia, and supplies, new and vintage cards, and Pokemon. They sell and trade cards and are always looking to buy. They're an authorized source for Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, and Leaf cards. Instant Replay Sports Cards is open 7 days a week at 752 West 23rd Street, down from Academy Sports, and can always be reached at instantReplaySportsCards.com.
You're riding shotgun with the Afternoon Underdogs. We're going to need some gas money. The Afternoon Underdogs.
Fill her up, please.
At 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
And we are back. It's the Afternoon Underdogs, and this is ESPN Northwest Florida. We're taking your calls and text, 850-215-6290. If you'd like to play some fantasy football with ESPN Northwest Florida, then text your name and your number, or your name and your email to 850-215-6290. We're going to continue on here with our Big 12 predictions. We've got high-low. Don't forget about that. The cue to call will be played at 5:40. And when you hear that cue to call, be caller number 10 at 850-215-6290. And we'll give you the question of the week. And if you guess correctly, you and a guest win a round of golf over at Bay Point Golf Club. All right, wrapping up here with our Big 12 projections. We left off Baylor, so the total set right now for Baylor is sitting at that's BYU, 6.5 for Baylor, and I've got them sitting at 8-4. So I would go over there. Where are you at?
I've got them at 9-3, losses to Utah, Texas, and K-State.
Yeah, and so according to CBS Sports, they've got them losing to Utah, Texas, UCF, and Kansas State. I've got them losing to Utah. I've got them losing to Texas. I've got them losing to, or is that? No, they're not playing Utah. They're playing Houston there. That's doesn't their logo right there at the beginning?
That is Utah.
That is Utah.
Houston's at the week 12 or something like that.
Oh, no, it is you. Okay, I got you. I'm with you now. All right, so Utah, Texas, they're losing to Houston and to TCU. Those are my 4 losses for them. We'll move on down to one of the teams that we haven't covered. I just want to go ahead and start with a surprise, man. Or I don't know how I even got to this point. So Oklahoma sitting at 9.5 wins. That's their over-under. All right. CBS Sports has them losing to Texas, OK State, and TCU, and they also like the under of 9.5. I just think it's going to be a turnaround type year. I think they've got somewhat of a favorable schedule in the Big 12 this year, and I've got Oklahoma coming away with 11-1. And if that actually happens, like even because I wasn't, I think they're going 11-1. I'm going game by game, and then when I get to the end, I'm like, there's no way I have Oklahoma going 11-1 after what they had last year. But that would be one of the biggest turnarounds, I think, from last year to this year, going from 6-6 to 11-1.
Yeah, no, I've got something very similar. I've got them at 10-2. I also had them losing to Texas and Oklahoma State, like CBS said, but I've got them beating TCU. It's the last game of the season. It's a Friday night home game. I've said it a couple times in the projections, like those weird Friday night home games. Weird stuff always seems to happen on non-Saturday games, especially at night. So I've got to go in 10-2, which would be the over. And like I said, we've got very similar. Do you have them losing to Texas? Is that their only loss for you?
Yeah, that is the only loss.
Yeah, like I said, I've got very similarly rated. So we'll see. They had a very talented roster last year. They underperformed. Brett Venables, second year, I've talked about it before, that second year jump. So if he's going to be the guy for Oklahoma that leads them into the SEC and potentially being competitive, they need to have a big year this year.
What about Texas for you?
Texas, I've also got about 10-2. I've got them dropping a surprise game to BYU. No, I do not. I had BYU.
Say BYU.
I marked it on there wrong twice. So no, I've got them going 11-1. Lone loss to Bama. I've got them running the table in the Big 12.
What would you say if I 100% agree with you? That is going to be their only loss of the season. Now, here's the thing. Texas is much like Oklahoma in that situation where it's like Texas A&M, like some of these other schools where they get so much hype at the beginning of the season and then just at some point down the road, it just implodes on them. So I would still be surprised to see Texas actually go 11-1. How healthy is Quinn Ewers going to be able to stay? You're losing Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson. Like there's a lot of
their schedule sets up relatively favorable. They got Oklahoma neutral site, but Kansas State's probably one of their tougher games. That's at home. They get Texas Tech at home, which we've kind of talked about getting some preseason love. Outside of that, they don't have a ton of tough games. TCU should be a tough game on the road if they can bounce back from last year.
Right, exactly. Like we've got to see them bounce back from last year.
I've got TCU kind of having a drop down year this year. So
what is drop down for you?
I've got them at 7-5.
7-5. See, because I know that they lost some players, but they also did pretty well in the transfer portal. The over-under for TCU is sitting at 7.5. I've got them at 9-3, and their losses for me is actually SMU. Wild, right? But SMU TCU is a fun fireworks filled game. I've got them losing to Oklahoma, and I got them losing to Texas.
See, I've got them actually starting off 7-0, and then they go 0-5 to end the season, which probably isn't very likely, but that's just kind of the way the schedule fell.
I don't like it because it reminds me of the Tennessee Titans last year. Start out 7-3 and then just lose it all from there. All right, let's look at another squad here. How about Kansas? Kansas had so much excitement around them last year, and they actually capped it off with a very exciting game, if I'm not mistaken, right?
In the Arkansas, in the Liberty Bowl?
Kansas and Arkansas, yes. So Kansas is sitting right now, they're over under at 6. I've got them going 4-8.
I got them at 3-9.
3-9.
Maybe I undersold them, but I kind of have to see it 2 years in a row from Kansas. Yeah. They've been so bad for so long. Like I'm great. Like they had a great year last year. The quarterback got hurt, kind of changed the trajectory of their season. But I want to see it again before I'll start believing they're better than a 4-8 type team.
Yeah, and they've got a tough little stretch there on the road this year as well. Especially, you're getting Texas on the road, you're getting Oklahoma State on the road, you're getting Iowa State on the road, and those teams. Iowa State is one of those bracket busters, if you will, like in collegiate basketball. But so we'll go to them next. I got Kansas at 4-8. You got them at 3-9. How about those Cyclones of Iowa State? They're over under sitting at that same 6.0 wins, and I've got Iowa State just below that at 5-7.
I've got them at 3-9 also.
3-9 as well.
I feel like they kind of dropped off a little bit last year, and I don't know if they've added enough to their roster to be much better than that. They too have a fairly difficult schedule: OK State, Oklahoma, TCU, Baylor, Texas, K-State. That's five of the best 7 teams in the conference, and that's just a tough schedule for them.
They lost 6 of 8 games. I'm seeing here they lost 6 of 8 games by 1 score last season. So, and they're bringing their quarterback in Hunter Deckers. So, I mean, hey.
Is he going to be allowed to play after the whole gambling thing?
Oh,
is that the same
yeah,
guy?
wait. Yeah, no, that's
going to be real interesting.
Yeah, never mind. So
I wouldn't bet on him playing next year. So.
I wouldn't either. I forgot about that, man. And it's wild that it's Iowa and Iowa State with
collusion.
Yeah, collusion, man. That's going to be a heck of a game, the Gambling Bowl. That's week 2 of the season.
So when I got done, I did not realize I had done this. But what do you have OK State's record next year?
OK State, I've got them sitting at 9-3, starting out great. They're going 4-0. They're beating a logo. Who is that? I'm not entirely sure. Then they've got Arizona State. They've got USA from Southern Alabama. Then they've got Iowa State. Those are all wins. Then they get a bye week. They come out of the bye week hosting Kansas State. I've got that as a loss for them. Then they've got Kansas at the house. They win. West Virginia, Cincinnati, 2 wins back to back there. Then they lose to Oklahoma. They beat UCF, lose to Houston, and then final game of the season against BYU is a dub.
See, I've got OK State running the table this year. Like looking at their teams or their games individually, they get the bye week and then they get to host K-State on a Friday. Then they have Kansas at the home. That should be an easy win. I'm not high on West Virginia this year. That's a win. Cincinnati. They get Oklahoma as their second toughest game at the house again. Then, I mean, their toughest stretch of games is Oklahoma and UCF back to back, I think, and that's 1 at home, 1 on the road. I mean, I just looking at their schedule, it just sets up so favorably that, I mean, I know it's hard to go undefeated, but man, I think if they were going to do it, this is the year to do it.
I wanted to go Oklahoma State, but I'm not sure who it is that's taking over for Spencer Sanders.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So that was my one thing that kind of held me back from being really high on Oklahoma State. And I'm not sure how I feel about this. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but Oklahoma State and BYU being the rival.
I feel I'm not sure why they changed that around.
Or the final rival, if you will, final game of the season. Like UCF should have been playing it should have been Houston and BYU and UCF and Cincinnati being each other's like final game of the season. Like let your rivalry games kind of brew from there.
Well, I know like Houston and Cincinnati have a history from the AAC and the Conference USA, so I don't hate that one, but I think the Big 12 was just kind of sticking it to Oklahoma and Texas by not letting Oklahoma play OK State the last game. And I mean, I guess Texas getting Texas Tech, so that's not terrible for them. They don't really have anybody now that A&M's been gone for a decade now.
Well, why I bring that up is because I would like to see Oregon State possibly get into the Big 12, and then Oregon State and Oklahoma State as a rivalry, just for you're watching the game on ESPN or whatever, and OSU versus OSU, black and orange versus black and orange. Man, that could be a lot of fun. I think Miles would say that it's a big time uniform matchup.
Yeah, so I guess looking at mine, I'd have 12-0 Oklahoma State, who'd have to be top 3 in the nation at that point, versus 11-1 Texas.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. For me, it's going to be Oklahoma and Texas, and that's one of the other things that I would love to see. Final year of the Big 12,
go out on top like that,
and it's Texas and Oklahoma playing for it. I mean, because the last few years, was it last year? Did Texas blow Oklahoma out last year?
Oh yeah, it was ugly.
Yeah,
it was like 49.
But the year prior to that, wasn't it like a 55-57 type game or whatever? So if we can get 2 games like that out of those guys this year, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Other teams to look at:
K-State. I don't think we hit. I got them going a very favorable 10-2. Their schedule sets up fairly nicely, I think, as well. And I think that's in Texas. Texas Tech going in 7-5.
See, that's the team who's 24th right now in the coach's preseason poll. That it's tough for me to be as excited as some other teams are, but that's just because I didn't pay a lot of attention to them last year, so I really don't know all that they're bringing back at this point. But their over/under is sitting at 7.5, so there's got to be some big time expectations.
They don't have the toughest schedule in the world. I mean, they got Oregon early, which should be probably a loss. Baylor and K-State in the middle of the schedule, and Texas Tech or Texas to end it. But outside of that, there's no game on their schedule. If you're looking at they're 100% losing that game.
Yeah, and Kansas State, TCU, and Texas are all at the house, though. So we'll see, man. I've got them going 3-9, but again, a lot of that has to do with the way that I was seeing the schedule and thinking that
home was away.
Right, which does change things, though, just the way that you're looking at. And we still got a ways to go, man. It's always fun to kind of see how you do throughout the season, because I know I'll be able to throw this sheet out more than likely by week 4.
It's no longer worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll move on. Kansas State. I've got Kansas State going 9-3.
And I think that'd be another good year for the Wildcats. You know, they had the Sugar Bowl win last year, or not win, Sugar Bowl appearance last year, Big 12 win last year. And then, you know, did not go so well for them against Bama in the Sugar Bowl. But, I mean, that's a good year for K-State football. It's going, you know, winning the conference, making a New Year's Six bowl. I mean, there's all but, a handful of teams that can say they did that or better. So, I mean, that's not a bad run for a program that doesn't recruit at an elite level. So, I'm interested to see what they do going forward.
Taking your calls or text here, 850-215-6290. But make sure you're near your phone line because we're 5 minutes away from the blast at Bay Point at 5:40. Play a little high-low with you. Let's go over to the NFL quickly. The Jaguars season will be a disappointment if they don't win the AFC South.
Ooh, I think that's true. I mean,
is it an overreaction or not an overreaction?
I'm not going to. I'll say it's an overreaction temporarily. Actually, okay. I mean, I think what they've done in Tennessee, even with questionable quarterback play, with questionable whatever, what they've been able to do up there has been very impressive from a coaching perspective. I mean, the Texans can't be any worse. The Colts probably can't be a whole lot worse than they were last year. I mean, I think the division as a whole is going to improve. But, I mean, they've got to feel great about where they are with their quarterback situation, with the weapons they've got on offense, some of the young pieces they've got on defense, and the coaching they have. I mean, they've got a great coach over there in Peterson, and I think they've got every right to be excited. But it's hard to say. I know it's kind of a cop-out, but it's hard to say preseason, like, oh, it's a disappointment if this doesn't happen because we don't know what's going to happen with injuries and everything else. But I think it's very close to being true, but I think it may be a little bit over the top this year. Maybe next year, depending on how it looks, you could go into it being like they should definitely win it this year or it's a bust. But I think it's a little soon.
I'll agree that it's a little soon. I don't think that it's necessarily an overreaction. I just don't think that it's a disappointment if you don't win the AFC South.
As long as you make the playoffs, does it really matter if you win your division?
Now, if you regress from not making the playoffs, that's where I think that not just the fans, but even Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was distraught when he lost to the Chiefs. And, you know, of course, you never want to lose a game. You're extremely competitive and all of that stuff. But it's like, no one expected the Jaguars to do what they did last year as well as they did. Because it was, you know, they started off the year, and I think a lot of people were talking about them, 3-0 or whatever. Then they dropped like 2 games. And so it was kind of that almost inconsistent form. But now this year, Zay Jones looks like he's taking an extra step or going to hit that next level. And it's going to be a little bit easier for him to hit that next level when you've got a guy wearing number 0 around you. And Calvin Ridley, though, I think that's going to be huge.
And Christian Kirk got paid last year and performed fairly well from the slot. Evan Ingram coming back. Trevor Etienne, one of the Etienne brothers over there in Jacksonville. They got Tank Bigsby coming in from Arkansas.
I want to say it's Trevor.
Or Auburn, not Arkansas.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've got some explosive weapons on that offense. It could be really fun to watch. And you got Doug Peterson calling the plays, and Trevor Lawrence back there slinging the rock. And
a decent defense as well over there. Oh, yeah. So we'll see. I wouldn't say that I'd say it's an overreaction to this point. But if you miss the playoffs, 100% a disappointment. The Stephon Diggs situation. This is something that we'll have to pick up after the blast at Bay Point. But is this Stephon Diggs situation going to be a problem for the Bills all year long? It seems like it's already subsided.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything about it since it happened, so unless there's something new that I've missed, but it kind of just seems like it was one of the. I think the problem was the coach came out and said it was a big deal, or he was greatly concerned, and that's why it became an issue. And it may have just been a nothing burger. Maybe he was trying to just call him out in the media without calling him out, or whatever it was. But I mean, I haven't heard about it 2, 3, 4 weeks now. So as far as I know, I didn't even realize it was still an issue, honestly. So
yeah, I think we're both on the same page there. It hasn't been brought up a lot. Now, what will be an issue is the way that last season ended for Stephon Diggs and the Bills, where he just kind of walked off. And if let's say they drop a game early, like let's say week 1, right? Monday Night Football against the Jets. They lose to the Jets, and you can just see it on Stephon Diggs' face. Like, he's distraught and not shaking hands and all of that stuff, just walking out again, which would be hard to see him do in week 1. But if he did that, then all of this stuff that's subsided is going to come right back to the top. This is ESPN Northwest Florida, and it's now time for the blast at Bay Point. Give us a call, 850-215-6290. Try to be caller number 10.
ESPN Northwest Florida. The tradition continues.
That ball is going to be out of here.
America's team plays here.
Bombs away!
The Atlanta Braves are back and making a statement.
Ronald Acuna just clobbered one to left.
Listen to Atlanta Braves baseball in a rich audio experience live on ESPN Northwest Florida.
Here comes the thunder.
Sponsored by Gilbert Kia, Reliable Hydraulic Solutions, Mid-South Lumber, Stormore Portable Buildings, and Park Pest Control.
This is Joanna with ESPN Northwest Florida with your Tuesday's weather. Tonight there will be a calm wind out of the southwest, partly cloudy skies, and 83. A chance of thunderstorms and mostly sunshine tomorrow morning, about the same at 90. In the afternoon and evening, a likelihood of thunderstorms and some sun and a high of 89. The same at 90 Thursday, and we'll have a mixture of mostly sunshine and possible thunderstorms. This forecast is brought to you by Ellis Agency Insurance. Thank you for keeping that dial on ESPN Northwest Florida. Rely on it.
Hey folks, Chris Kramer with Bill Kramer GM. And the best place to listen to the Inside Drive with Ryan Mulvey is inside a brand new vehicle from Bill Kramer GM. And I want you to know we've got 10 times the amount of inventory on the ground as we did this time last year, and darn near all of them are discounted. So shop us online at BillKramerGM.com or visit us the corner of Frankfurt and 23rd. We'll make it easy and take great care of you.
Great design is timeless, and that's why Tracy's Fine Jewelry inside Coin and Bullion Reserves offers a stunning selection of vintage, antique, estate jewelry on sale now at 40% off. Exquisite Victorian rings, Art Deco diamond brooches, Georgian and Art Deco bracelets, earrings, and pendants. These one-of-a-kind pieces add personality to any ensemble, and now at 40% off. Find your timeless treasure at Tracy's Fine Jewelry inside Coin and Bullion Reserves.
The mission?
Your mission, should you decide to accept it.
Save the panhandle from boring cookie-cutter radio. Now back to the Afternoon Underdogs.
The state will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
And we're back. It's the Afternoon Underdogs, and this is the Blast at Bay Point. Looking for caller number 10, and we've got Justin on the line. Justin?
No, Justin got cut off.
Justin got cut off, so we're looking for caller number 11 now, or we got someone else?
No, you got him on the phone right now.
All right, let's go. How many oil changes did Bill Kramer Chevrolet Buick GMC perform last weekend?
76.
76?
That is too high.
Man, so close though. Your next opportunity now to play high-low is going to be at 8:40 in the morning on the Coach James Hale Show, so don't miss your opportunity there. Who are we speaking with?
Butch Busalado.
All right. So have you played this with us yet, high-low?
No, I just started.
All right, sweet, man. Well, that makes you eligible, so you didn't get it right. But as a consolation prize, you're still going to get a large bucket of range balls on the driving range. Have you ever played golf over there at Bay Point Golf Club?
Sure have.
Awesome, man. What's your personal best over there at Bay Point?
We don't want to go there.
Hey, man, I'm telling you.
Right there with you.
I'm right there with you. The last time that I played there was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I want to say it was, I shot 114 or so.
Well.
So you're like, okay, actually, we can say mine. Yeah. It was,
hey,
yeah.
You get your money's worth.
Yes, exactly. The more shots I take, the more fun I'm having. Right. Exactly.
The more fun you're having.
Maybe not mentally so much, but yeah, the golf clubs don't enjoy it either. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Hey, but just do me a favor, hang on the line, and Randy's going to grab a little bit more info from you and tell you how you can come get your large bag of range balls.
Okay. Get a bag of range balls. Put it on speaker.
All right. This is the Afternoon Underdogs, and your next opportunity, again, is going to be at 8:40 in the morning. Coach James Hale Show. You just got to know, how many oil changes did Bill Kramer Chevrolet Buick GMC perform last weekend? 8:40 in the morning on the Coach James Hale Show. Let's get back to a few of these NFL topics as we're getting ready for the season. One that kind of stands out to me, the Rams. And these are just overreactions, and you just judge, is it an overreaction, not an overreaction, but do you think that the Rams could deal Aaron Donald at the trade deadline?
At the trade deadline, yeah. I mean, I think at that point they're going to kind of know how the season's going. Are they legitimate playoff contenders at that point? And, I mean, Sean McVay's not an idiot, but there's also been talks of like once Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford and Aaron Donald kind of hit the road, so to speak, he's not going to be too far out the door behind him. So I wonder. He's not a guy that seems to want to coach forever like a Bill Belichick or Andy Reid or somebody. So it would not surprise me if we started talking just a complete rebuild with the Rams, unless there's just something about this team outside of those guys that just makes them fall in love with the game again.
And at the end of the day, I mean, he's got what he wanted. He accomplished what he set out to do as far as getting the ring there with the Los Angeles Rams. And hey, and I think that's honestly. When the news came out with Matt Stafford not accepting the pay cut, that's what's going on in my mind. Is I think that you know that your time is coming to an end, and you'd rather you can't bank on next year to make more money. So
just trying to milk it for all it's worth at this point,
right? So, and if Stafford's elbow is bothering him again this year, then it looks like Stetson Bennett. I want to see him if Stafford is injured. I would love to see a good amount of Stetson Bennett next year.
I think more people than would willing to admit also are curious to see how good he actually is in that kind of situation, just because he got ripped so much about the talent level at Georgia and being older than everybody and all this stuff. If he were to come out in the NFL and actually play like a viable starter, it'd be awesome to watch for him, obviously, but just to see the narrative on him actually swap to man, he did not get nearly enough credit, which we don't know if he did or did not. And I mean, the college game, pro game, completely different, but the guy's
100%.
Guy won 2 titles. So what else do you really say about the guy? But I think that'd be great for college football fans everywhere. I'd be super curious to see how that experiment would go.
Yeah, man. I would love to see Aaron Donald, like, let's say the Titans are playing some good football, and then he gets on that defensive line with Jeffrey Simmons. My goodness, dude.
With Mike Vrabel coaching them up over there, man, that would be...
I think you would see Aaron Donald catch a touchdown pass if he was on the Tennessee Titans. You know what I mean?
Vrabel special?
Oh, yeah. Which Vrabel wasn't coaching when Taylor Lewan first got to the league, but I was just watching one of the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and he was talking about... that was one of his favorite plays in the NFL when he got to catch a touchdown pass. So
it was probably his only touchdown of his career. So that's good.
More than likely
going to stick out to him. So
I don't know. I want to say that he's been involved.
Well, some of those tackles, they do
get
a couple opportunities. So.
And Derrick Henry gets the opportunity to throw the pigskin around a little bit as well. And that's always fun whenever you see the man, a big, giant man, jump passing like Derrick Henry. Whenever I said Derrick Henry's name, I thought of those Guardian caps, and I heard them talking about it on the Dan Patrick Show. Do you think that the Guardian caps... Now, I'm not asking you if you think they're working or anything, but should the NFL make it to where if players would like to use those in real games, they can?
Yeah, I think they should find a way to make it work. I mean, if they legitimately protect against the concussions the way they claim, and if player safety at the end of the day is as important as the NFL wants to make it, I don't see why not. I don't see why you couldn't doctor it up to look like the Cowboys logo or the Titans logo or whatever, just slide it on over the helmet and just why not? I mean, you can't tackle somebody by their helmet anyway, so if that affects the tackling, well, then it should be it's going to be a penalty regardless.
Right.
I mean, I know from a branding standpoint, it's not fun, but like I said, they've got the money to print on those. So I think it's a great idea, honestly. Like if we're trying to cut down on CTE and concussions, why not?
And not even make it mandatory. Just like, hey,
voluntary.
If you want this, I'm sure that someone out there could figure out how to get the logos on those things and make it look almost seamless outside of the raises and all of that, because they've got those little bumps on them.
You could tell up close, but I mean, if you're watching from a distance or on TV, how much are you really going to notice? Is it really going to bother you?
I don't think that it's going to bother you as long as it looks like what the helmet
as long as
should
it blends
somewhat
in,
look
it
like.
shouldn't matter.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, because you even go back, like the guys who were wearing, and I'm more than less here paraphrasing how the guys on the Dan Patrick Show were talking about, but they went from leather helmets, and I'm sure that when the guys started seeing shells on their helmets, the guys who wore the leather helmets were like, what in the world? That looks crazy. Why in the world would you wear that? Then all of a sudden you add a face mask to it, and now the helmets have changed up a little bit. So of course it would take some getting used to, but once we got used to it, I mean, in hockey back, they didn't wear helmets. Now then, some players would wear visors. Now it's mandatory. Like like if you came into the league since whatever 2000 something, you've got to wear a visor.
Yeah, and they've done some things like you can't get certain face masks after a certain, they ban like that 1-bar kicker face mask. They banned some stuff here and there. So, I mean, it'd be a weird thing for 3 years, and then everybody would forget that it ever existed without it and just get on with your lives. Why not?
Yep. Man. So we'll see, though. I think that I
think it's a great idea.
I think that we're, less than 10 years away from, I would actually say somewhere around 3 years away from at least giving them the option. I think it's even more so important for them to be getting that done at the collegiate level.
Would it not make sense to maybe do it for like preseason games, see how it goes, and then go from there?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
I think we're within 2 years of seeing it in a preseason game.
Or the XFL or the USFL.
Yeah.
Hey, like we'll provide these for you guys, help you, cut that cost out for you, but we need you wearing them in games, or we need a certain amount of players wearing them in games. And then seeing that at the collegiate level would also be huge as well.
Because as a player, why not? Like it shouldn't bother you in any way. It shouldn't change anything. I don't know how maybe it would affect the heat being retained by the helmet, not as much ventilation.
They're practicing in them, though. Yeah. And I feel like when in practice, you're in your hat more than you are.
And you're running more continuously at practice as opposed to like drives and TV timeouts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like of course you're still getting tired and everything, but yeah, I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see, and that they're going to be doing studies on that in the future. The Panthers will win the NFC South behind their rookie quarterback in Bryce Young.
I'm going to say no right now until we see Bryce Young take a few snaps and play the whole season. I think he's got the ability to be that guy for Carolina. We've seen what he could do at Alabama. The guy's a great quarterback, great passer. His size is the question, right? It's always been the question. It continues to be the question, and see how that goes for him. But the Panthers are a solid team overall. The quarterback's a huge question mark. New staff. I don't think any of their weapons really amaze you. I think it's not a bad group, but I don't think there's anybody that's like, oh man, that guy's going to take over a game from a receiver, running back perspective, which could hurt. But I'm going to say no for now.
I'm with you. I think that it's a bit of an overreaction to this point until the Saints prove otherwise, that they're not the team to beat there in the NFC South. But I think there's two other teams there's one other team in the NFC South right now that, who knows, the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not going to sit here and say the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers came out today and unveiled their depth chart and said Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. If you've got or in between your quarterbacks, which it doesn't really matter, but the fact, like you could just, Baker Mayfield's a veteran. He's going to be QB1 for now. We're still 4 weeks out from a game. And Kyle Trask is QB2. But the fact that you put or lets me know you're really just kind of helping the ego to an extent, helping the emotions of Baker Mayfield. In all reality, you know that you're going to be trotting Kyle Trask out there, and you're just kind of waiting on the cake to bake, if you will.
I am interested if Kyle Trask does get a start or 2 or 5 or the whole season, how he looks. Because, I mean, he had a great year at Florida. It's funny because he could never seem to win the job over Felipe Franks, but then Felipe Franks gets injured against Kentucky, I believe it was. And, it ended up being a blessing in disguise for Dan Mullen in that program for the 19 and 20 seasons, I believe it was. And him and Kyle Pitts had a great connection going on there, which, he does have a weapon, Mike Evans down there, kind of similar size at least.
Right.
And then you got Chris Godwin as well and a few other young guys. So it could be really interesting to see what he could do. And I think for the Bucs, like, why not see what you got? Either that or he's not it and you're just trying to get to the first round next year and draft somebody like Williams or May.
Yeah. Kellen Moore will help Justin Herbert reach a new level. Is there another level? I think that there is another level for Herbert to unlock.
Has to be. I think Herbert, he's been one of the more prolific passers. I think I've seen a stat that he's scored more points as a starting quarterback in his first 4 or 5 years than anybody in history, but the team's also given up more points than any team. So it's been
par for the course for the Chargers.
Yeah. But at the same time, like he did make plays to win the game against the Jags in the playoffs this past year, even though they had a huge lead. But he's beaten Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead. He's had some moments of brilliance. I think you want to see more consistency, and I think the bigger issue is injuries at the wide receiver position.
Yes.
With Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they can never seem to have everybody healthy at the same time, which doesn't help your quarterback either. And then you have Austin Eckler asking for a trade and everything else with the whole running back situation. But Kellen Moore had some good moments in Dallas, great moments in Dallas at times. There was talks of him being, the next hot shot in the league, and then Mike McCarthy comes in and that kind of fizzles. But I think a change of scenery could be good for both him and hopefully Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I'm thinking I like Justin Herbert to kind of take that next step and, get in the mix with Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, and he's already in the mix with them. I'm talking about playoffs. Like, let me see a Josh Allen. Like, the divisional round is Josh Allen versus Mahomes and Burrow versus Herbert.
The potential for the AFC, and that's not even including guys like Aaron Rodgers.
Come on,
Deshaun
dude.
Watson, if he can get back to form, despite everything, Lamar. he's a legitimate MVP
Pro Bowler
winner.
Mitch Trubisky.
Kenny Pickett make that second year jump? There's so much potential for those AFC quarterbacks. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then even a guy like C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis down there in the AFC South. Like, the potential is there through the roof.
Tannehill.
We'll
find out.
Tannehill's the worst quarterback in the AFC. That says, I think, more about the quarterbacks in the AFC than Tannehill, because Tannehill's had some moments in this league. And he's led the Titans to the playoffs. He wasn't terrible in Miami. I'm not going to say he was great, but he had some moments in Miami.
I don't think he had a team that was really, they didn't do for Ryan Tannehill what they've been doing for Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, obviously.
You know what I mean? And then with Tannehill, here's what I will say. If the offensive line is 50% better than what it was last year, like, the Titans are the favorites for the AFC South. If the offensive line is 50% better than what it was last year, because that's another issue is Tannehill is getting older. Tannehill is getting less mobile, but he had no time last year. And so if he's back, or if the offensive line is better, then they're going to be in better position. But until I can see that for a stretch of 5-6 games, until you can go 7-3 and just go 1-6 in your last or so, you know what I mean? It's not going to bode well, and I'll have the Jaguars as being the favorites in the AFC South. Until then, though, and it's going to be interesting too. Another year older with Derrick Henry, how that plays out is going to be definitely interesting. The Lions are locked to win the NFC North. Is that an overreaction or an underreaction?
Overreaction. I've got the Vikings win it this year still.
Yeah,
I like what Dan Campbell's done. I think I've said on the show, I'm not a huge fan of the way they spent their draft picks. Gibbs and Campbell may end up being great players. I just feel like they had two elite picks, and they got good players, but positions that have been devalued in today's NFL. And so we'll interest me. Obviously they know a lot more than me, so we'll see if they made the right picks or not.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to say that the Lions are a lock to win. I'm still struggling, kind of going back and forth on, do I think Minnesota wins it again or the Lions? But also, I can't sit here and count out the Packers for some reason. I don't think that they're going to be that good.
It's hard to, because they've been so good for a majority of our lives that it's hard to believe that they're completely out of it until you see it for yourself.
And then, Jordan Love, without having Aaron Rodgers there in Green Bay, who knows? Maybe there's something that, that they can get going with Matt LaFleur.
I think the more question is, who do you think is most likely to come in last? Is it still the Bears after all the moves they've made this year?
That would be oh man, out of time. Coach James Hale Show is going to be live tomorrow at 7 a.m. Your next chance for the Blast at Bay Point to play a little high-low is going to be at 8:40. Y'all have a great day. Be safe. Buckle up. We'll see you later.
ESPN Northwest Florida.
The Atlanta Braves play here.
The tradition continues tonight. The Atlanta Braves at the Pittsburgh Pirates. Listen to play-by-play and ultra-high fidelity live from PNC Park.
Line drive, base hit, left field.
First pitch is 6:05 right after the Afternoon Underdogs. On your home for the Atlanta Braves on the Gulf Coast.
He went the other way.
ESPN Northwest Florida. This is Joanna with ESPN Northwest Florida with your Tuesday's weather. Tonight there will be a calm wind out of the southwest, partly cloudy skies, and 83.